After breaking off the engagement, the female CEO begged me to reconcile. The Su family was heavily in debt, and Yifan decisively helped the Su family through the difficult times. He secretly helped Su Ningshuang develop her career many times. However, Su Ningshuang, who had a successful career, regarded Yifan as a stepping stone. The years of love were just Yifan's wishful thinking. Su Ningshuang didn't know that all the success she pursued was not worth mentioning in Yifan's eyes. Chapter 1: Breaking off the engagement. Jinghai. In the CEO's office of Su Group. Breaking off the engagement agreement. Yifan lightly picked up the document on the table, his tone calm. Sitting opposite him was a woman dressed in a professional OL outfit, with one leg crossed over the other, a look of disdain on her face. That's right, Yifan. No more nonsense, just sign it. The woman in front of him was not his wife, but rather, his wife Su Ningshuang's secretary, Liu Han. You can handle the breaking off of the engagement so easily. No wonder you're Su Group's top secretary. But, as a secretary, why are you speaking to me like this? Liu Han gave a faint smile. Yifan, you're just a young man who has just come down from the mountain. Who do you think you are? Take a look at what's under the breaking off agreement, and then you can ask that question. With that, Yifan furrowed his brows, throwing the agreement aside. Su Ningshuang really did things decisively. Not only was she trying to break off their years-long engagement with a simple document, but she was also putting an end to their relationship, which had existed only in letters. Don't be too surprised, Yifan. You know Su Group is about to go public. Just one step away from becoming the largest listed company in Jinghai, and all it takes is a little push from overseas capital. Their condition is Sudong, so you're an obstacle that must be removed. At these words, Yifan's heart became complicated. He and Su Ningshuang had promised to marry for years, but because he had been in seclusion on the mountain, they had only communicated through letters. He never imagined that when he finally came down from the mountain, this would be the result. He didn't believe that the Su Ningshuang he knew would do such a thing. Years ago, when the Su family was in a low period and heavily in debt, Yifan had helped them through their troubles. Now that everything was stable and prosperous, Su Ningshuang was pushing him away. An obstacle. Is that how Su Ningshuang sees me? That's one way to put it. Secretary Liu raised her head proudly, pointing to the TV screen showing an interview. What appeared on the screen was none other than the stunning Su Ningshuang. Yifan, look. In just a few years, Sudong's net worth has surpassed 1 billion. Jinghai's #1 beauty, the chairwoman of Su Group, with her abilities, she is bound to be pursued by countless people. You're no longer in the same world. The gap between you is like the difference between the sky and the earth. Seeing that Yifan was silent, Liu Han frowned slightly. She understood after all, this one piece of paper had taken everything from Yifan. Are you unwilling to accept this? It's useless. All these years, besides occasionally writing letters to Sudong, what have you done? Even though you helped Sudong back then, all debts have been repaid. If you owe anything, it's what you owe Sudong. At these words, Yifan took a deep breath, trying to control his emotions. There's no need to be so upset, Liu Han. I don't want to just leave like this. Years of letters weren't just about business, there were feelings involved. If we're really going to break off the engagement, Su Ningshuang should say it herself. Liu Han's lips curled slightly. This is a trivial matter. There's no need for Sudong to come forward. A trivial matter. Breaking off an engagement is a trivial matter. Otherwise, what do you think? At this point, seeing Sudong would be pointless. Pointless? Yifan didn't believe that Su Ningshuang could have no feelings left for their relationship. Fine, if it's such a small matter, does it mean that now Su Ningshuang is beyond my reach? Liu Han just snorted coldly and pushed the agreement forward again. Stop talking, Yifan. Just sign, and you'll get luxury cars, mansions, and 1% of Su Group's shares, worth millions. These are things that many people can only dream of, yet you only need to sign your name on this paper. Where does your confidence come from? Let Su Ningshuang say it to my face, or I won't sign. Yifan said coldly. Liu Han couldn't hold it in any longer. She stood up angrily, slammed the table, and pointed at Yifan, shouting, "Don't push your luck. With Sudong's position, do you really think this engagement can't be broken without your consent? Preserve whatever little dignity you have left." Dignity? Yifan sneered. She didn't even want to show her face, yet a secretary was handling such a major matter. Where was the dignity in that? If she still had any feelings, would they be in this situation? Yifan said nothing more, standing up and walking toward the door. Yifan! You! Just as Liu Han was about to explode, the door handle clicked open. In front of him stood a woman in a black dress, her face stunning, with delicate features, and a graceful figure. Her cold, ethereal aura made her look like a fairy, beautiful beyond words. It was none other than the first beauty of Jinghai, Su Ningshuang. Finally willing to show up, Yifan said, looking at the beautiful woman before him. Sorry, I'm late. Su Ningshuang apologized, then sat down on a chair. Now that you're here, let us get to the point. This engagement must be broken. You can make any requests, as long as I can meet them. Saying this, Su Ningshuang took a share transfer agreement out of her bag and casually placed it on the table. Her cold attitude made Yifan's heart sink. As soon as I come back, the breaking off agreement is already prepared. Seems like you've planned this for a long time. So, all these years of letters were just my one-sided feelings. Su Ningshuang looked out the window at the city below. It doesn't matter. Those sweet words were all just empty fantasies. Just some lines I had the butler send to you. After so many years without seeing each other, what feelings could we have left? Reaching this point wasn't entirely because of Yifan's inaction. It was because Su Ningshuang saw no hope in him, and their spiritual connection had broken. Su Ningshuang hesitated for a moment, then quickly replaced the hesitation with resolve. It's pointless to say more. Just sign. Is it overseas capital, Yanjian? Did he make you give up on this relationship? Yifan asked cautiously. Hearing this, Su Ningshuang instinctively wanted to refute him, but after thinking for a moment, she nodded. Yes. Yifan smiled faintly, took the breaking off agreement, and signed his name. He was now certain, Su Ningshuang had changed. After all these years, her ambitions had far surpassed what Yifan could handle. Yifan touched the white jade ring on his finger, taking a deep breath. The long-silenced energy within the ring surged. The white jade flickered with a subtle, strange light, then faded away. Whereas the letter? Give me back the letter. The last letter between us, give it back. Su Ningshuang didn't care, took out the letter with a special postmark, and placed it on the table. Yifan picked up the letter, stood up, and walked toward the door, his eyes cold, a chill that pierced to the bone. After he left, Su Ningshuang sighed deeply. She had initiated the breakup, but she didn't feel the slightest relief or happiness. What Su Ningshuang didn't realize was that today, without Yifan, everything that Su Group had achieved would be nothing. Chapter 2, A Fight. In the lobby of the group, Yifan looked at the smooth white jade ring in his hand, his heart filled with mixed emotions. Over the years, he had witnessed Su Ningshuang's growing ambition, and the annulment of the marriage was something he had expected. However, now that it had come to this point, he could not bring himself to be indifferent. While he was on the mountain, he had always dreamed of a simple life with her 3 meals a day, for seasons together, living a peaceful and happy life. But now, Yifan had learned that sometimes, even ordinary happiness is considered a crime. He had been intoxicated by that gentle world for so many years, and perhaps it was time to wake up. Lost in thought, a sudden, urgent ringtone broke his reverie. Looking at the unfamiliar number, he answered it indifferently. Mr. Yi, this is Lin Yaoqi from the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce in Jinghai. I heard that you are knowledgeable about precious medicinal herbs. I have a Tian Shan snow lotus here and would like to consult you about it. The Tian Shan snow lotus. Years ago, Yifan had publicly announced that if anyone could provide him with one of the 8 rare medicinal herbs, he would reward them generously. The Tian Shan snow lotus, one of the 8 great medicinal herbs. What do you want from me? Just say it, Yifan replied calmly. Such a lavish gift meant Lin Yaoqi must have a request. I'll get straight to the point, Mr. Yi. A relative in my family has fallen ill with a strange disease. Many famous doctors have been unable to diagnose it, so I wanted to ask for your help. The Wanmin Chamber of Commerce controlled many listed companies and was a major capital player behind them. Given that the president of the chamber, Lin Yaoqi, was now so humble, it was clear how terrifying Yifan's influence must be. I understand your rules, Mr. Yi. Regardless of the outcome, I'll deliver the Tian Shan snow lotus to you personally. Yifan raised his eyebrows slightly. Are you serious? Absolutely. I'll send someone to pick you up right now. Lin Yaoqi confirmed multiple times, clearly relieved. For Yifan, the value of the Chen Shan Snow Lotus far outweighed any amount of money or jewels. What mattered most to him were those 8 rare and precious medicinal herbs, which were capable of saving lives. Yifan's mood improved significantly, but when it came to the Su family, he still had no desire to stay. Thinking back on his time with Su Ningshuang, there was a mix of reluctance and regret. Brother-in-law? A sudden voice snapped him back to reality. It was Su Ningshuang's younger brother, Su Zhe, walking toward him. Zhe, what are you doing here? Yifan asked. Seeing Yifan's dejected expression, Su Zhe already guessed what had happened. His sister was decisive, and once she decided to break the engagement, she had acted quickly. Of course, I'm here to see my sister, brother-in-law. By the way, it's been so many years since we last met. Yifan sighed lightly. Yeah, I've been on the mountain for some years. By the way, I'm no longer your brother-in-law. Su Zhe was somewhat surprised by Yifan's calm response. What's going on, brother-in-law? You were my first choice for my sister's husband. If you're not going to be my brother-in-law, then who will? A faint smile appeared on Su Zhe's lips. First choice. In truth, the Su family now was nothing like it had been years ago. With the Su Corporation about to go public, how could a poor boy like Yifan be worthy of being his brother-in-law? Your sister broke off the engagement with me. It's settled, and there's nothing I can do about it, Yifan replied. Su Zhe gave a knowing look. I see. But, brother-in-law, don't blame my sister for this. After all, you've been away for so many years without even showing up, and now you want to take over the entire Su Corporation. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Hearing this, Yifan furrowed his brows. What are you saying, Zhe? You know me. I have no interest in Su Corporation's wealth. As Yifan spoke, he inadvertently exposed a letter envelope in his pocket. Su Zhe's eyes gleamed when he saw the thickness of the envelope. Isn't he that money? He mocked Yifan internally, saying he wasn't interested in money, yet there was a bulging pocket in his coat. How hypocritical. Hey, brother-in-law, what's that in your pocket? Let me have a look. Yifan, unbothered, pulled out the envelope without hesitation. It's just a letter. He opened the envelope and inside were cash and a bank card. Before Yifan could react, Su Zhe's true nature fully revealed itself. Oh, so you don't care about money, huh? Then what's all this? No. It's not like that, Zhe. I don't know how it got there, Yifan tried to explain. But Su Zhe scoffed and interrupted. Bullshit. My sister doesn't want you anymore, and you're still taking things from Su Corporation. You still have the nerve to show your face. Yifan didn't know about the money in the envelope. He thought it was just the last letter from their long correspondence, a mere keepsake. But it turned out Su Ningshuang had filled it with money, using it to utterly crush Yifan's dignity underfoot. Before you went up the mountain, my sister helped you, and you lived a worry-free life. And now, you're a white-eyed wolf, still trying to take a piece of Su Corporation as you leave. Yifan could hardly believe his ears. His eyes turned cold. A white-eyed wolf. Who's the real white-eyed wolf? If it weren't for me helping the Su family through their hard times, would you all even have a place to live now? Still talking about the past. Su Zhe sneered. The Su family will rise again without you. Don't think you're that important. Su Zhe snatched the envelope from Yifan and tightly held it in his hand, not letting go. Yifan didn't care about the money, but he would never allow anyone to defile that letter. He felt his heart sink. Zhe, do you really have to do this? You can take the money, but give me back the letter. Su Zhe placed his hands on his hips, exposing the ugliness of his heart. You're not worthy of calling me Zhe. Don't think you'll get the money or the letter. Who knows what tricks you're up to? Yifan looked at the letter being crushed in Su Zhe's hand, his anger rising to its peak. Give it back to me. He roared, lunging forward to grab Su Zhe. Su Zhe struggled but found that he was no match for Yifan's strength. You're strong for a white-eyed wolf. No wonder my sister would be with trash like you, Su Zhe jeered. Want money? Want the letter? Fine, I'll tear it up and make sure you get nothing. With that, Su Zhe tore the letter to pieces, and the cash scattered in the wind. Yifan's face turned ashen. This letter had been his only connection to the love and life he had left behind on the mountain. It was his spiritual anchor. And now, it was torn into pieces. Die. Yifan clenched his fists, his knuckles cracking. He threw a punch straight into Su Zhe's stomach. The overwhelming force sent Su Zhe flying several meters, causing him to spit blood. In a flash, Yifan strode forward, grabbed Su Zhe by the hair, and yanked him upright. If your mother didn't teach you properly, then I'll take over. With that, Yifan slapped Su Zhe relentlessly. The sound of slaps echoed through the air. Chapter 3, Framing. The commotion quickly drew the attention of the security at the Su group. A group of security personnel rushed out and surrounded Yifan, creating an impenetrable barrier. Get lost! Yifan shouted angrily, his cold and frosty gaze immediately causing the security team to hesitate and retreat. The intense pressure from his stare made them freeze. They had never encountered such a look before. Just his eyes alone seemed capable of killing someone. It took them a moment to regain their senses before they moved forward. Dare to hit our young master Su. I think you've had enough of living. Hit him! The head of the bodyguards commanded, and a crowd of security personnel rushed in, fists raised. Stop! Let me see who dares to move. A sharp, cold female voice rang out suddenly. A bright red Ferrari screeched to a halt, leaving a long trail of tire marks, followed by several business vehicles. The security personnel froze in place, and all eyes turned toward the source of the voice. A woman in a light-colored dress stepped out of the Ferrari. Her slender waist, delicate features, and exquisite beauty left everyone speechless. Behind her were several bodyguards, exuding an air of authority that commanded attention. Mr. Yi, I'm late, the woman said, her lips curving into a subtle smile. Every movement exuded charm, as if she could captivate anyone with just a glance. Greedy eyes immediately turned toward her, but she ignored them and walked straight to Yifan, bowing respectfully. Mr. Yi, President Lin asked me to come pick you up. Oh, I am Zhao Simon, the eldest daughter of the Zhao family. Upon hearing these two names, the crowd gasped in astonishment. Zhao Simon, the Zhao group. That is the eldest daughter of the Zhao family. She is more impressive than our vice chairman Su. Zhao Simon's name was well known in Jinghai. Coming from a wealthy family and backed by the Zhao group, she also controlled several companies worth billions. She was a business powerhouse who, in her 20s, had built her own empire. She was now the president of the Zhao group. So President Lin sent you. Yifan wasn't unfamiliar with Zhao Simon. Although he had been away on the mountain for years, seemingly detached from the business world, he was well aware of its complexities. He knew exactly what was going on in the market, and no major event escaped his notice. I apologize, Mr. Yi, we arrived late. With that, Zhao Simon's expression turned icy, and she waved her hand toward a few of her bodyguards behind her. Let us go, Mr. Yi. Leave these ants to my people. The bodyguards immediately lined up, sunglasses on, exuding an air of aloofness. Their sheer presence caused the Su Group's security to take several steps back in fear. Mr. Yi, please. Yifan calmly picked up the broken pieces of the jade ring from the ground, then followed Zhao Simon. Not a single person dared to move during the entire process. Only when the tail lights of the Ferrari faded into the distance did the security personnel finally approach, supporting the battered and bruised Su Zhe. The other security guards exchanged glances, not daring to speak. Young Master Su, we apologize for our negligence. Miss Zhao's team is made up entirely of retired Special Forces soldiers. We simply couldn't bring ourselves to act. It was at this point that Su Ningshuang, having heard the news, finally arrived. She immediately spotted her blooded brother, frowning in concern. What happened? Seeing Su Ningshuang, Su Zhe immediately began rolling on the ground. Sis, look what this Yifan did. Not only did he find trouble, but he also beat up your own brother. Hearing this, one of the security guards quickly added, that's right. Who does he think he is, acting so arrogantly? Upon hearing these words, Su Ningshuang's first reaction was not to feel frustrated, but confused. After all these years, she thought she understood Yifan. This didn't seem like something he would do. Little Zhe, what exactly happened? Yifan wouldn't attack for no reason. Su Zhe was enraged by her response. What are you saying, sis? Are you turning on me? You've already called off the engagement. As he spoke, Su Zhe's eyes darted, and he began to cry dramatically. Originally, I just came to check on the company, but then I ran into Yifan at the entrance. He got so angry about the broken engagement that he threw the envelope on the ground. I tried to calm him down and help him pick it up, but he slapped me several times. He is nothing but a beast. Su Ningshuang hesitated for a moment, lightly biting her lip in confusion. Here? But you never come to the company. Did you provoke him? It doesn't make sense. What do you mean by that, sis? Su Zhe's voice cracked. I told you, he is the one who started it all. You're taking his side, don't you believe me? Seeing the situation turning against him, the security guards quickly joined in. I can confirm, what young Master Su said is true. Su Ningshuang was still conflicted. This didn't sound like Yifan's style. Look, sis. Su Zhe wailed, I told you, Yifan attacked me for no reason. Am I supposed to just let that go? And by the way, he has been seeing another woman on the side. It's good that we broke off the engagement. The more Su Zhe spoke, the more outrageous his claims became, leaving Su Ningshuang utterly confused. Though she believed she understood Yifan, she wasn't completely confident in her understanding of their relationship. As for her brother, she knew full well how he could twist the truth. Little Zhe, please tell me what actually happened. Don't embellish things. Seeing his sister wasn't believing him, Su Zhe started throwing another tantrum, shouting in misery. Sis, you've found yourself a useless, ungrateful man for a husband, and now you're going to drop him, and I'm the one who suffers. My life is so hard, so hard. His crying and tantrums were in vain. With both Su Zhe and the security guards collaborating, none of what they said was the truth. Even Su Ningshuang, with all her doubts, started to waver as everyone around her pointed fingers at Yifan. Seeing that Su Ningshuang seemed to be at a loss, Liu Han, who had been observing quietly, finally spoke up, whispering in her ear. You're just too soft-hearted, Miss Su. Young Master Su already said it, and the security team confirmed it. What is there to doubt? People change, after all. Earlier, in the office, his attitude toward me changed completely. Su Ningshuang furrowed her brows, her once determined gaze now filled with uncertainty. Could it be that her cancellation of the engagement really caused Yifan to snap and retaliate in such an extreme way? Had she misjudged him all these years? All right, take little Zhe to the hospital. I'll handle things here. After a moment of contemplation, Su Ningshuang sighed in resignation. With that, several security guards took Su Zhe away. She knew her brother too well. This matter couldn't possibly be that simple. Don't think too much, Miss Su, Liu Han said, noticing her troubled expression. No matter what the misunderstanding is, Yifan was in the wrong for hitting someone. Especially for hitting our vice chairman Su. He didn't consider your feelings at all, or our Su group. He is a brute, a disgrace. Chapter 4, No Time to Lose. Su Ningshuang frowned slightly. Secretary Liu's words made her waver again. But my brother and these fence-sitters keep saying. Seeing Su Ningshuang wavering, and thinking of Yifan's attitude towards him just now, Liu Han quickly interrupted her. She was extremely angry. On the surface, she seemed to be standing up for Su Zhe, but in her heart she was full of resentment towards Yifan. Boss Su, no matter what, it's wrong to hit someone. Why don't you sit down and discuss it first? Why do you start fighting without saying anything? It turns out that Yifan is a rough man at heart. Su Ningshuang sighed lightly and said, that is true. No matter how aggressive or arrogant her brother is. Yifan couldn't hit anyone, especially since he was her own brother. She had always thought Yifan was gentle and easygoing. Could it be that it was all because of the constraints of the engagement? Director Su, we can't just let this matter go. Yifan has to pay the price. A barely perceptible cunning flashed across Liu Han's eyes. Su Ningshuang, who was originally a little impatient, was instigated again and again. With some resentment, he picked up the phone and dialed Yifan's number. On the other side, a rapid telephone ring was heard from a speeding bright red Ferrari. Yifan frowned, looked at the wife note on the incoming call message, hesitated for a moment and picked up the phone. Hello? Yifan, explain to me, was it you who beat my brother? As soon as the call was connected, Su Ningshuang on the other end was furious. He started with a questioning tone, as if he had already determined that it was his fault. Yes, but. But what? As long as you hit someone, it's your fault. Before Yifan could explain the reason, Su Ningshuang interrupted him angrily. I misjudged you, Yifan. It was me who asked you to cancel the engagement, not my brother. If you have any grievances in your heart, you can come to me. Don't retaliate against the people of my Su group, and don't touch my family. Yifan was stunned. After so many years of relationship, there was still no trust. He would never do such a thing. Su Ningshuang, don't you want to know the truth? Am I so unbearable in your heart? No matter what, it's not a reason for you to hit someone. Hearing this, Yifan no longer wanted to say anything more. The reason is not important to her at all. The important thing is, Su group. I'm thinking of our old friendship. Yifan, you go to the hospital right now and apologize to my brother. Otherwise. What else? Yifan asked, are you going to call the police to arrest me and take revenge on me? Even though Yifan was good-tempered and remembered their old relationship, he didn't want to tolerate it anymore. I was the one who beat him up. Since your brother has no one to discipline him, I will take care of him on behalf of his parents. Su Ningshuang gritted her teeth. Do you still care about the relationship we have had for so many years? Hearing this, Yifan smiled self-deprecatingly. Is there still any old love between you and me? It's up to you, Mr. Su. Come on, no matter how you want to retaliate, Yifan, am waiting. Without waiting for Su Ningshuang to get angry again, Yifan hung up the phone. When the wall falls, everyone pushes it. Once the engagement is cancelled, all the troubles will come. Yifan made Su Ningshuang very angry and she completely lost control of her emotions. Seeing this, Liu Han started to act up again. Boss Su, do you want me to find someone to teach Yifan a lesson? No, leave it alone. Su Ningshuang was resolute and did not give Liu Han another chance to speak. Right now, what's more important is the dinner party hosted by overseas investors. The scale of this dinner party is unprecedented, so we have to prepare well. Liu Han immediately took a breath of cold air. Boss Su, are you saying that we have also received an invitation? That's right. Su Ningshuang nodded. As long as we can get on board with Yang Jian, Su Corporation will be not far from going public. By then, our assets will double, and we will become one of the giants in Beijing and Hai. Yifan had already arrived at Jinghai First Hospital in a Rolls-Royce. In the VIP ward on the top floor, the old man had been waiting for a long time. After getting off the car, Yifan and Zhao Simon walked quickly and soon reached the top floor. Several doctors sat together in the ward, looking worried. The old man on the hospital bed had a blue face, a dark spot above his forehead, and was breathing rapidly. He was already in a semi-faint state. As soon as the two entered the door, a beautiful girl with twin ponytails came up to them. Yifan took a closer look and saw the second daughter of the Zhao family, Zhao Xiao. Sister, these doctors are just rubbish. They just don't have any clues after asking for a long time. The doctor was helpless. I'm sorry, Miss Zhao, we have done everything we can, and there is no improvement. I really have no idea what to do. Zhao Simon, who had been calm just now, suddenly shouted angrily, then get out of here and let Mr. Yi come. After hearing Mr. Yi's words, everyone looked at the young man behind Zhao Simon. But their eyes were full of suspicion. They were too young. Although age doesn't mean anything, what matters to doctors is clinical experience. Can this young man do it? Are you crazy, sister? He is about my age, and Mr. Yi. Hearing this, Zhao Simon glared at Zhao Xiao and said, don't be rude. This is someone personally recommended by President Lin. He prepared a generous gift before he was willing to come forward to treat the patient. We should trust him. Although Zhao Simon said this, she was actually unsure. After all, Yifan is really too young and doesn't look like a doctor. Mr. Yi? Are you sure you really know medical skills? Don't be a charlatan. You call yourself a gentleman. You think you are so high-handed. Zhao Xiao looked him up and down and sneered. Yifan shrugged, I understand a little, but I didn't ask your sister to call you sir. Know a little. You dare to jump out with just a little knowledge. Do you know that these doctors are the top doctors in Jinghai First Hospital? They have no idea. What are you doing here if you know a little? Zhao Simon was helpless and grabbed Zhao Xiao. Xiao, I told you not to be rude. Sister, you just trust President Lin too much. If Grandpa's life is gone, can Mr. Yi take the responsibility? Without waiting for Zhao Simon to speak again, Yifan twitched his lips and asked, what do you want me to believe in you? Your grandfather's illness cannot be delayed any longer. If you delay any longer, he will die before I can take action. The atmosphere was tense. Zhao Xiao was used to being domineering and rude. She rolled her eyes and said unconvincedly, "Okay, it's not hard for me to believe you. Not to mention Grandpa's illness, if you can tell what disease I have, I will believe you." Yifan waved his hand. "If your grandfather's illness wasn't urgent, I wouldn't want to embarrass you." It is easy to infer the condition of Zhao Xiao's tongue when she spoke just now, combined with her temper. Irregular menstruation, often waking up in the middle of the night for no apparent reason, accompanied by a headache. My liver fire is too strong, I guess I have put a lot of effort into skin care. Oh, and the body odor you tried so hard to hide is also very obvious. Zhao Xiao was stunned for a moment, and her whole face quickly turned red. Chapter 5: Vomiting Blood. The embarrassment was hard to describe, but for Zhao Xiao, it was more of surprise. The other party didn't even look at her. How could he know so clearly? And even her sister, doesn't he know about her body odor? How did you know? Yifan waved his hand. Chinese medicine emphasizes observation, listening, questioning, and palpation. For a mild and common disease like yours, there's no need to even feel the pulse. Now the two sisters of the Zhao family finally felt relieved. Trust in Yifan was also established. However, given Zhao Xiao's personality, she would not admit it easily. It's really a blind cat that has caught a dead mouse. I remind you, watch your mouth. Zhao Simon sighed softly, having no idea what to do with her sister. I'm sorry, Mr. Yi. I'm just a harsh-mouthed person, but I actually have a good heart. Yifan naturally wouldn't care about this little girl. What attracted him more was the old man's illness. Let the others go out first. I will treat the old man. Hearing this, several doctors looked at each other, and none of them showed any intention to move. Although they were afraid of the two sisters of the Zhao family, the hospital rules could not be broken. I'm sorry, Mr. Yi, we can't let you stay here alone. If something happens, the hospital can't afford it. Yifan also expressed his understanding of this, but his medical skills have been dormant for many years. It's so out there, I'm afraid these people won't believe it. Yifan walked forward and placed 2 fingers on the old man's wrist. He closed his eyes slightly and soon came to a conclusion. It is a poison, and a rare toxin that is deadly enough. It seems that someone wants the old man to die. If I had arrived a few hours later, I would be facing a corpse now. Bring the silver needle. Yifan said to the doctor without even raising his head. It's not that he is arrogant, but because the old man's poison has already entered his bones and he has to be careful. The doctor did not delay and quickly took out the silver needle. After taking off the old man's clothes, there were faint black and blue marks on his chest. Yifan slid gently from top to bottom, then took out the silver needle. Just when everyone thought Yifan would start the acupuncture carefully, Yifan moved lightly, and the silver needles slid across the old man's skin like a dragonfly skimming the water, and then fell one by one. The layman watches the excitement, while the expert watches the details. The doctors widened their eyes, marveling at Yifan's superb skills. Zhao Simon was also shocked, although she didn't know much about acupuncture. But after following my grandpa and father for many years, I have seen all kinds of famous doctors. Their attainments in acupuncture could not even be compared with Yifan's. Yifan heaved a sigh of relief until all 13 silver needles were inserted into the old man's body. 13 turns of silver needles. At this time, a doctor standing in the crowd murmured. Yifan smiled calmly. He didn't expect that there was someone who knew the value of the product. At this moment, a sudden voice was heard. I'm the director of Jinghai First Hospital, a professor, and I came here specifically to treat Mr. Zhao. What do you mean by not letting me in? Hearing this, Zhao Simon walked to the door with a cold expression. Professor. She had heard of this title. But since Yifan had already been invited, Zhao Simon implicitly refused. Before I could open my mouth, Zhao Xiao came over. Professor Wang, you are finally here. Come in quickly. Seeing the girl's admiring look, Professor Wang laughed and said, Sorry, the road is a bit congested. I'm here to treat Mr. Zhao. Please let me in. Zhao Xiao made way without saying a word and waved her hand to invite Professor Wang in. By the time Zhao Simon wanted to stop it, it was too late. Xiao, where did you find this doctor? Sister, haven't you heard of him? He is a leading figure in the medical field in Jinghai. Rumor has it that he is ranked first in medical skills in Jinghai. He is the famous Professor Wang. Zhao Simon was skeptical and had no good impression of Professor Wang. As soon as Professor Wang entered the room, he saw the old man's body full of silver needles and he became furious. "You are crazy. I think you are crazy." He yelled at the doctors, "Don't you know how to stop this kind of thing that is not worthy of being shown on the table?" The doctors were speechless as the two young ladies of the Zhao family were here, so how could they dare to say anything? Professor Wang rolled his eyes and reached out to pull out the silver needle. "Wait!" Yifan hurriedly stopped him and shouted, "Don't bother Professor Wang. I have suppressed the onset of the toxin. The silver needles are used to suppress the toxin and cannot be removed." Professor Wang was unhappy when he heard this. He was a fan of Western medicine and had always looked down on traditional Chinese medicine. If a few silver needles can detoxify now, then it would go against my own ideas. "I think you are confused. You are a foolish country doctor. Are you kidding me? Silver needles can't cure diseases, let alone suppress toxins." "That's right, is it over? Why hasn't Grandpa changed at all?" Zhao Xiao agreed, with displeasure written all over her face. Obviously, she didn't fully trust Yifan yet. "Your grandfather was infected with a strange poison that had already penetrated deep into his bone marrow. One acupuncture session could not completely expel it, but fortunately I was able to curb the spread of the poison, so his life was saved. Just a few more silver needle treatments and it will recover." Zhao Xiao was skeptical. "TSK, everyone can brag. Xiao?" Zhao Simon's eyes were cold. "Mr. Yi saw your symptoms at a glance just now. Have you forgotten?" At this point, Zhao Xiao still insisted that was a coincidence. Zhao Simon grabbed Zhao Xiao's braid without saying a word. "Xiao, if you continue to be rude to Mr. Yi, I will freeze all your bank cards." This time, Zhao Xiao's lifeline was grasped, and she begged for mercy again and again. "I was wrong, sister, I was wrong. Ms. Zhao, the best medical team in Jinghai is standing in front of you, and you don't believe it. You just trust a fool. What do you think of this? Don't rush to seek medical treatment. This will only make Mr. Zhao's condition worse. We can't delay the treatment." Professor Wang joined in the cheering, and the team that followed began to echo, "Yes, we believe in Professor Wang." Seeing that Zhao Simon remained unshakable, Professor Wang did not want to miss this rare opportunity. "The person lying on the bed is Mr. Zhao. If he can be cured, his rank can be doubled. He must take the gamble. As for Yifan next to him, he was just a liar in his eyes. Miss Zhao, please trust me. I will treat the old man's illness. If there is any problem, it will be my fault." After saying this, Professor Wang waved his hand without paying attention to Yifan and Zhao Simon's attempts to stop him. 13 silver needles were pulled out in an instant, and dark red blood flowed out from the small holes. Yifan shouted angrily, "Are you fucking crazy?" At this time, Mr. Zhao, who was lying on the hospital bed, was convulsing all over and vomiting black blood from his mouth. The sighs of the people mixed with the beeping sounds of the machines. The originally peaceful ward suddenly became chaotic. Chapter 6 Bugs. Professor Wang's eyes were dull. He had not expected the consequences to be so serious. "It's no use, Professor Wang. The patient needs emergency treatment," the doctors reminded, and everyone finally came to their senses. Mr. Zhao was originally in a semi-comatose state, and now he is completely in a coma. The vital signs machine was alarming frantically and the situation was critical. The doctors tried every possible means to awaken Mr. Zhao's desire to survive. The result was of no use, and vital signs continued to decline. The two sisters were extremely anxious, but there was nothing they could do. "It's over. It's over. Mr. Zhao may not be able to save him." At this time, the doctor who recognized the 13-turn silver needle suddenly spoke. When Professor Wang heard it, his eyes went dark and he almost lost his balance. The two sisters of the Zhao family were even more heartbroken. "You useless bastard, look what you have done." Zhao Simon was furious and slapped Professor Wang in the face. Then she kicked out, her ladylike image instantly collapsed, and she cursed at the man on the ground. "I told you not to touch my grandfather, but what should I do now? If anything happens to my grandfather, I will bury the entire team with him." Professor Wang was terrified because the man lying on the hospital bed was the chairman of the Zhao group. Even if he had 10 lives, it would not be enough to pay the compensation. "It's none of my business. It's just a stupid doctor who insisted on using silver needles. He's the one who caused all this. Ms. Zhao, you have to make the decision for me. Professor Wang looked at Zhao Xiao for help, but the latter subconsciously avoided him. Seeing Mr. Zhao covered in black blood, Yifan suddenly felt something was wrong. He no longer had the heart to deal with this professor who had no medical ethics. Miss Zhao, the old man is in critical condition now. The poison that I just suppressed has begun to counterattack and is beginning to eat away at Mr. Zhao's internal organs. There is no time to lose. Go prepare the herbs. Understood, Mr. Yi. I'll go find him right away. Please tell me. 1 ounce of spider silk, 2 poisonous centipedes, an earthworm, a drop of cobra venom, and finally, a stone dish. After hearing these things, everyone looked at each other. Although in traditional Chinese medicine, many strange animals can be used as medicine inducers. But if the things Yifan mentioned just now were crushed and combined, would it still be medicine? It would be poison. This is so disgusting. Zhao Xiao said subconsciously, this is medicine, are you sure? Yifan's eyes were sharp and cold. Medicine is 3 parts poison. If you want to save your grandfather, don't waste time. Within a few minutes, all the things were delivered. Zhao Simon apologized repeatedly, I'm sorry, Mr. Yi, it was us. Before she could finish, Professor Wang jumped up from the ground and grabbed Yifan by the collar. You are treating patients recklessly. How can a country bumpkin like you get involved in such a serious matter? You must solve the problem now. Otherwise, just wait to disappear from the face of the earth. And these things are not medicine at all, they are poison. Yifan looked him up and down and said contemptuously, do you know how to govern people? You are a worthless piece of shit, and you dare to pull out the needle in front of me. I guess you are tired of living. If I hadn't pulled out the needle, Mr. Zhao would have died just now. Seeing Professor Wang grabbing a life-saving straw, Yifan immediately understood. It seems that they want to make him a scapegoat. A piece of trash like you will only bring disaster to the medical field if you stay here. Sooner or later, someone will suffer at your hands. After saying that, Yifan pushed Professor Wang aside and came to the bedside. Professor Wang was still unyielding. Boy, I advise you not to touch Mr. Zhao again, otherwise if something goes wrong, you will die. Yifan was very disdainful of this noisy villain. This little kid is so difficult to deal with and so shameless. No one else can be like him. Shut up. Zhao Simon shouted angrily, and slapped Professor Wang in the face again, if you say another word, get out of Jinghai. Now, Zhao Simon has placed all her hopes on Yifan. After all, the acupuncture technique just now was witnessed by everyone, and it's not something that can be faked. Please, Mr. Yi, spare my grandfather's life. Looking at Professor Wang with red and swollen cheeks, Yifan's face remained expressionless. I feel a little happy inside and don't want to care about it. Zhao mobilized all his strength, even the cobra venom was obtained from the snake. With these things, plus Yifan's superb medical skills. Next, it depends on Mr. Zhao's survival instinct. Okay, crush it with a stone dish, and apply it around the silver needles after I'm done with the acupuncture. Yifan said to the doctor who just recognized the 13-turn silver needle, and the other party was also flattered. Taking out the silver needle, Yifan took a deep breath. Mr. Zhao's illness this time is also a challenge for him. Although he hadn't given acupuncture for a long time, he was still confident in his skills. As the silver needle slowly fell, Yifan's dantian strength pressed directly to the tip of the silver needle. I thought to myself. 17 turns of silver needle. 1 shot, pylorus. 16 stitches, big one. 17 needles, moisture. Go, apply it around all the silver needles. All 17 silver needles fell down, and the movements were smooth and flowing, like a dragon moving. At this moment, Yifan's forehead was covered with sweat, and most of his internal energy had been used up. 17-turn silver needle technique is a long-lost secret skill in Chinese medicine. The effect of practicing medicine and bringing people back to life is almost equivalent to bringing the dead back to life. But it has been lost for 100 years and only the name remains. But now I saw it in Yifan's hand. You are just being mysterious. Professor Wang looked at Yifan and said disdainfully, look how nervous he is. He must be afraid of revenge from the Zhao family and that he will be killed by Mr. Zhao. After doing all this, Yifan picked up the stone dish. Pour the black stuff directly into Mr. Zhao's mouth. This tactic is called fighting poison with poison. Although there is some damage to the internal organs, it is at least better than dying directly. Then, Yifan looked at Professor Wang with cold eyes. If it weren't for this villain who pulled out the needle rashly, Mr. Zhao wouldn't have come to this point. Noticing Yifan's gaze, Professor Wang refused to be outdone. He believed that this young fool was not capable of saving Mr. Zhao. After all, so many of them can't do it, so why should he? Stop glaring at me. It's no use pretending to be mysterious. You have to cure the patient first. You might as well think about how to give Miss Zhao an explanation. If these few broken needles of yours are useful, wouldn't our Western medicine be a joke? The other doctors on the team echoed the words, that's right, that's right. Who the hell are you? Western medicine is a joke. As soon as Yifan finished speaking, there was a noise coming from Mr. Zhao's side. A cough almost sentenced Professor Wang to death. Mr. Zhao, who was in a coma, woke up. At this moment, the silver needles moved, and small black bugs crawled out of the 17 needle holes. This scene made Zhao and her two sisters vomit immediately. There are actually bugs inside Mr. Zhao's body. This powerful impact shocked and disbelieved everyone present. Chapter 7 Unbelievable. Seeing Mr. Zhao waking up, Zhao Simon rushed over. Hot tears slid down my cheeks, and the stone in my heart finally fell to the ground. Wake up, wake up. The huge medical team around him made sounds of disbelief. Who would have thought that there would be so many doctors sitting around? After discussing it for several days and nights, the cause of the disease was still not found. But he was cured by a young man. As their values on various instruments gradually stabilized, Mr. Zhao's condition stabilized. After a near-death experience, Zhao Xiao finally realized the seriousness of the matter. The black bug caused her great psychological trauma. Thank you, Mr. Yi. Zhao Simon stood up, wiped her tears, and bowed to Yifan. My grandfather was able to wake up, all thanks to Mr. Yi's rescue. From now on, you will be the savior of our Zhao family. Hearing this, Yifan waved his hand casually, it's just a small matter. His contemptuous words hurt the hearts of everyone present. Such difficult and complicated diseases can be cured with just a few silver needles. You said it was a trivial matter. Where would you put this group of top medical teams in Beijing and Hai? But speaking of which, Mr. Yi, what on earth is going on with the worms in my grandfather's body? Zhao Simon asked in confusion. This was the first time she had seen such a scene. Speaking of this, Yifan became interested. After all, it is not a simple insect, but a GU. Nanyun is rich in various insects, many of which are extremely poisonous. As long as it is cultivated, it can survive in the human body and continue to eat away at the internal organs. This is called GU magic. As he spoke, Yifan picked up the black bugs that he had forced out of Mr. Zhao's body. These witchcraft techniques won't kill people suddenly, but they can constantly torture the human body and cause a slow death. The cruelty of GU Shu is obvious to all. Jinghai hasn't heard of this thing for a long time. Yifan's words became more and more mysterious, leaving everyone present confused. How could Nanyun's belongings appear in Jinghai? Professor Wang's back was soaked with cold sweat, but he remained stubborn. He didn't believe in any witchcraft at all. It was simply a story made up by Yifan to show off his medical skills. It's just luck. Mr. Zhao was able to recover because his desire to survive was strong enough. What kind of witchcraft is this? It's just made up. Yifan just looked at this so-called professor coldly. A person who shows off his knowledge and jumps to conclusions based on a bunch of Western medical instruments and tests. If it's not witchcraft, how do you explain how bugs can survive in the human body? Ignorance is not scary, don't pretend to know when you don't. Seeing this, Zhao Simon gave Professor Wang a cold look and bet on his mouth. The matter of needle removal will not be resolved so easily. The title of the best doctor in Jinghai is just an empty title. Get out with your people. After Professor Wang and his group left the ward, Yifan asked questions to Mr. Zhao, who had just woken up. The act of poisoning was so vicious that he must have a deep hatred for the Zhao family. Mr. Zhao, have you left Jinghai in recent days? Hearing this, Mr. Zhao, who was still a little weak, just nodded slightly. Yifan was not surprised to get a positive answer. Jinghai hasn't heard of witchcraft for a long time, so it is highly likely that he was not framed in Jinghai. In this case, Miss Zhao will need to go and find out the truth. Zhao Simon nodded repeatedly. Even if Yifan didn't say anything, she would definitely investigate it thoroughly. Although Mr. Zhao has regained consciousness, the damage caused by the poisonous insect in his body has not yet healed. Yifan left a prescription and left the ward. Before leaving, Zhao Xiao was instigated by Zhao Simon to step forward in shame. "Hey, you so-and-so, I misunderstood you. I'm sorry." Thinking of the arrogant and domineering look of this girl just now, it is in stark contrast to her shy appearance now. Yifan nodded slightly, turned around and left with a smile. Seeing him like this, Zhao Xiao's heart, which had just calmed down, became furious again. Look at his sister. I don't know what she's so crazy about. Zhao Simon shook her head helplessly. Wait a minute, Mr. Yi, I'll take you there. At the same time, in another ward of the hospital, Su Zhe was wrapped in gauze, his face full of displeasure. As the son of the Su family, when had he ever suffered such injustice? Mom, you have to vent my anger for me. A woman stood by the bed, wearing gold and silver, looking rich and noble, but she still looked rustic at heart, which no amount of jewels could conceal. This person is Su Ningshuang and Su Zhe's mother, Li Yanfan. Okay, I'll call your sister now. I don't know where Yifan, that bastard, has been for a few years. He has grown into a bad-tempered person when he came back. He even dares to hit someone from our Su family. Li Yanfan has doted on this son since he was young. That's like holding it in your hand and being afraid of it falling, or holding it in your mouth and being afraid of it melting. I received a phone call today that my most beloved son was beaten by that useless son-in-law. This made the old lady so angry that she almost died in that villa of several hundred square meters. That's right, he's such an ungrateful person. No wonder my sister broke off the engagement, he deserved it. Here, before the call was connected, the door of the ward was pushed open. The person who came was the overseas capitalist, Yang Jian. Hey Zhe, I haven't seen you for a few days, what happened? When Li Yanfan saw the person coming, she immediately smiled. This is the son-in-law she has in mind. Although he is not good-looking, he is very capable. Xiao Jian is here, you have to talk to Ningshuang. Once these words were spoken, Yifan was completely excluded. Although the engagement has been cancelled, he still had a relationship with Su Ningshuang for many years. Li Yanfan said this as if Yang Jian was already the son-in-law of the Su family. What's going on, auntie? Who hit Zhe? I'll send someone to deal with him right away. Before Li Yanfan could speak, Su Zhe felt like he had grabbed a life-saving straw. Brother Jian, it's my sister's old lover. He beat me up as soon as he came back, and my sister didn't stand by me. Brother Jian, you have to stand up for me. When Yang Jian heard that it was Yifan who took action, he immediately became furious. He had long been fed up with this person and hadn't seen him for so many years. But it seems to be there all the time, hindering the development of him and Su Ningshuang. How can a stinky loser who has moved to the mountains compare with him, a rich second generation? I don't know what Su Ningshuang is worried about. At this time, the door of the ward was pushed open again. Mom. As soon as the words fell, Su Ningshuang, who came late, saw Yang Jian standing aside, and Secretary Liu behind her was also stunned. Although the help of overseas capital is needed, young Master Yang is a hurdle that must be overcome. But Su Ningshuang actually has no feelings for this person. Why are you here, Master Yang? Thank you for coming all the way to see my brother. Su Ningshuang said this just for show, and she passed Yang Jian and came to the bedside. He asked Su Zhe as soon as he came up, what's going on? Chapter 8, Promise. Su Zhe had always felt that Su Ningshuang was biased, and now he was even more certain of it. Sister, you've already broken off your engagement with that loser, why are you still coming to question me? Why don't you go ask him what's going on? As he spoke, Su Zhe turned to look at Yang Jian with a sly smile. Brother Jian, my revenge depends on you? Yang Jian nodded angrily when he heard this. He had wanted to take action against Yifan for a long time. But I don't know where to go. Now, I can take this opportunity to give him a warning. Unexpectedly, Su Ningshuang raised objections at this moment. No need, Yifan has already apologized, and the cause of the incident is still under investigation. Su Zhe was immediately furious. What? Apologize? Bar. I want him to kneel down in front of me and kowtow to me, and then apologize. I might even forgive him. Don't be rude. Su Ningshuang rolled her eyes and frowned slightly. Sister, are you crazy? Brother Jian is my brother-in-law. Yifan is nothing. It's just a torn letter. Isn't it our Su's money that's in it? I think he's just looking for revenge after being broken off from the engagement. Hearing this, Su Ningshuang's face was covered with a layer of gloom, and she was in disbelief. You tore up the letter. Yes, isn't it our Su's money that is in there? What I tore up are my own things. Su Ningshuang was immediately furious. She knew very well what the letter meant to Yifan. No wonder Yifan, who is usually gentle, would hit someone. This is where the problem lies. Her younger brother is really a cause of worry. I think you're the one who's crazy. Let's just forget about Yifan beating you today. If you dare to find someone to take revenge on, I will tear your mouth apart. These words scared Li Yinfen, who was standing by, because that child was her own flesh and blood. Hey, what are you talking about, little girl? Shezhe said that it belongs to our Su family, so why can't we tear it up? Is it wrong to tear up my own things? Why does Yifan hit me? Su Ningshuang was too lazy to explain to the mother and son. Even if they were her own brother or mother, she no longer had an excuse to stand up for them. That letter was of great significance to Yifan, and he would never allow anyone to touch it, let alone tear it up. Thinking back on her previous attitude towards Yifan, she couldn't help but regret it. It turns out I was wrong. She didn't even have this trust. On the other side, a Rolls-Royce was speeding on the viaduct. Mr. Yi, thank you for today's work. The promised Tianshan Snow Lotus will be delivered soon. Zhao Simon said this and took out a bank card from her pocket. Here is the 3 million and the VIP card of Jinghai Qiancheng Hotel under Zhao's company. Of all these thank you gifts, Yifan was only interested in the Tianshan Snow Lotus. As for the money and VIP cards, don't miss them. It's just a piece of cake. They arrived at the villa halfway up the mountain, which was where Yifan lived before. I wanted to pack up my things and leave this sad place. Unexpectedly, before I even got out of the car, 2 black business cars drove up and parked on both sides. Yifan looked carefully and found that he had never seen these people before. Miss Zhao, please come with us. Zhao Simon looked around at everyone. Far from being afraid, her expression was as cold as ice. You are so brave that you even dare to stop my car. The man in black smiled cunningly and picked up a hammer without saying a word. He pretended to smash the car window, acting arrogantly and domineeringly. Ms. Zhao, we are inviting you now. If you still don't appreciate our courtesy, we will have to rob you. Yifan frowned slightly, realizing that something was wrong. This is a villa halfway up the mountain, one of the best villa areas in Jinghai, with tight security. These people are so brazen, there must be someone with great power behind them directing them. But he stopped Zhao Simon at Yifan's previous residence. No matter how you think about it, it seems strange. Without waiting for Zhao Simon to speak again, Yifan opened the car door and got out. His eyes were cold and there was no expression on his face. Now, get out of here immediately. Zhao Simon was stunned for a moment, picked up the phone and quietly dialed a number. She never expected that Yifan would get out of the car. With so many people, even the strongest person would not be able to withstand it. Har har. The man in black laughed. You're just a pretty boy, and you want to play the hero who saves the damsel in distress. Brothers, give me. The man in black wanted to say something, but stopped midway. Only a black shadow flashed by, and no one could see the movement clearly. The leading man in black had already fallen to the ground, foaming at the mouth. Yifan's expression was extremely displeased, his eyes sank again, and his fists clenched tightly, making a creaking sound. He turned around and stared at the group of men in black. It's too late to get out now. The men in black had not yet reacted to how their leader fell. Yifan moved his feet and rushed out like thunder. He shuttled through the crowd like a ghost, leaving traces wherever he passed. A punch was thrown out with such speed that it was impossible to catch it. Within a few seconds, all the men in black were lying on the ground, unable to move. Only the previously arrogant leader in black was left, still retaining a trace of consciousness. During the fight just now, Yifan had already guessed what was going on. With his powerful information network, it was clear who sent these people. Zhao Simon couldn't believe it, her beautiful eyes widened. I originally thought Yifan was just showing off, but I never thought he was so powerful. Not only is his medical skill superb, his martial arts skills are also unfathomable. Yifan half knelt on the ground, grabbed the black-clothed leader by the hair and lifted him up. Overseas capital, Yangjian. Hearing this, the man in black was immediately frightened. Judging from his performance, Yifan was already certain of his guess. Even in the mountains, he had all the information about Jinghai in his hands. Yifan slapped the man in black without saying a word. Just slap him until he faints. At this time, Zhao Simon got out of the car with a pair of slender white legs. The crisis was resolved, and she had a new opinion of Yifan. Thank you, Mr. Yi, for not only saving my grandfather, but also saving me now. I really don't know how to repay you. How about giving me my body? Yifan was a little stunned by these sudden words. This woman and Su Ningshuang's cold temperament are two extremes. Zhao Simon is full of charm, and her every smile, gesture and movement are full of infinite charm. Her charming figure makes men all over the world salivate. Seeing Yifan in a daze, Zhao Simon chuckled. It's just a joke, Mr. Yi. Don't be nervous. If Zhao Simon hadn't said that, Yifan would have wanted to explain it to him. Although these people said that they were coming for Zhao Simon. But in fact, Yang Jian was just looking for someone to take revenge on him. He never thought Su Ningshuang would be so ruthless, but he was not sure. Was it tacit approval or did Yang Jian do it on purpose? Chapter 9 Dinner Party. Yifan was not very interested in Zhao Simon, a charming woman. If it weren't for Su Ningshuang's breaking off of the engagement, he wouldn't mind having some story with this woman. By the way, Mr. Yi, these people dared to stop the car today, in large part because the bodyguards were guarding my grandfather in the hospital. I am alone now. Can you bear to see me being so lonely? Zhao Simon's pitiful eyes blinked. The slender hands intertwined together looked so pitiful. But Yifan didn't quite understand what this meant. In that case, why don't I personally send Miss Zhao back? On the Zhao family's territory, I don't think these people would dare to take action again. Hearing this, Zhao Simon frowned slightly, feeling a little aggrieved. This straight man, even after she had said so much, still wanted to send her back. She really didn't believe that Yifan would leave her alone. Mr. Yi, I have a dinner party to attend today. Can you bear to let me go alone? You've saved me twice today, you don't mind doing it again? A black line slid across Yifan's face. This woman. With such a delicate face, I didn't expect he is so thick-skinned. Don't worry, Mr. Yi, I won't ask you to follow me for nothing. As she said that, Zhao Simon opened her handbag and took out an exquisite gold-plated key. This is the Zhao family's herbal medicine storehouse. Tianshan snow lotus and a number of precious herbs are all in it. They were collected by my grandfather for many years. Looking at the key, Yifan agreed to Zhao Simon's request without hesitation. If you say so, I'd better obey you. Mr. Zhao is quite knowledgeable about medicinal materials, and the Zhao family's medicinal materials storehouse will surely bring him surprises. Well, I can accompany you to the dinner tonight. Seeing Yifan agreed, Zhao Simon made a gesture like a little girl. It seemed to be an affirmation of his own charm, but it was mostly due to the help of this medicinal material warehouse. At night, the Jinghai Tianzi Tower. In the luxury car, Zhao Simon, wearing a light-colored long dress, held Yifan's arm affectionately. She wore a little makeup, had fair skin, and a pair of long white legs, revealing her noble temperament. Although Yifan had refused again and again, the woman continued to act coquettishly. There is no choice but to hug her. Anyway, I am a free man now, no longer bound by an engagement. The two of them got off the car together and immediately became the focus of the whole audience. After all, the strength of the Zhao family in Jinghai is obvious to all, and the eldest daughter of the Zhao family is like a shining star. Tianzi Kaiyonglu is the largest banquet hall in Jinghai. It covers a large area and its decoration is antique and luxurious like a palace. The banquets held here were attended by all the prominent figures in Jinghai. At the same time, a stunningly beautiful woman got out of a black Mercedes-Benz car at the other end. Everyone's attention was attracted again. The woman in the black evening dress, with flawless delicate features, tall figure and slender waist, was none other than Su Ningshuang. As soon as I got off the car, the man opposite came up to me. Ningshuang, you are here. When everyone looked, they realized that this was the host of tonight's dinner, overseas capitalist Yang Jian. This woman is so beautiful that she unexpectedly wins the favor of young Master Yang. Su Ningshuang responded with a smile, but seemed a little absent-minded. The secretary Liu Han who was traveling with him quickly struck up a conversation with a flattering look on his face. Young Master Yang personally came to greet us. We at the Su Group are honored. At this moment, Su Ningshuang's eyes were fixed on the luxury car at the other end. The figure coming down from above looked so familiar. When I looked closely, it turned out to be Yifan. I didn't have time to think about why he was here. The remaining guilt in Su Ningshuang's heart made her unable to help but step forward. Yang Jian and Liu Han saw Su Ningshuang heading to the other end, and although they were confused, they followed her. Coming up to him, Su Ningshuang greeted him a little awkwardly. Yifan. As soon as he finished speaking, before Yifan turned around, Zhao Simon stepped forward and held his arm again. A happy smile was on his face. Originally out of guilt, Su Ningshuang came here without hesitation to explain. She never thought that the moment she saw Zhao Simon, she felt as if she was facing a formidable enemy. The woman was tall and had delicate features on her lightly made-up face, which was comparable to hers. When she heard Su Zhe say today that Yifan had a new love, she just thought it was nonsense. Now it seems to be true. Ningshuang. Yifan said subconsciously, but his eyes soon turned cold. What can I do for you? Thinking of her attitude towards him today, Yifan really couldn't force a smile. Without waiting for Su Ningshuang to speak, Zhao Simon looked the woman in front of him up and down. Everyone shared the same idea in their hearts and felt as if they were facing a formidable enemy. It is probably impossible to find two such beautiful women in the entire Jinghai. Mr. Yi, who is this? So to speak, ex-fiancé. Zhao Simon nodded thoughtfully and extended her hand towards Su Ningshuang. Hello, I'm Zhao Simon. As he spoke, he tightened his grip on Yifan's hand. Every gesture and movement is a declaration of sovereignty. Su Ningshuang frowned slightly, remembering that she had just misunderstood Yifan today, so she did not jump to conclusions. She just responded to Zhao Simon with a smile, then turned to look at the man. Yifan, I want to talk to you. Hearing this, Yifan smiled bitterly. This change in attitude and Yang Jian's difficulties today. He really couldn't understand what there was to talk about between them. What to talk about? The details of breaking off the engagement. Su Ningshuang was stunned for a moment. Don't be like this, I really want to talk to you. She didn't expect that Yifan would tear open his scar in public. His nonchalant expression seemed as if breaking off the engagement was not that important to him. What about me? Isn't breaking off the engagement your choice? Don't you think it's too late to talk about it now? Hearing this, Su Ningshuang was speechless for a moment. Breaking off the engagement was her choice, but it would be a lie to say that she didn't care at all after so many years of relationship. Especially when he saw Zhao Simon holding Yifan's arm tightly. The anger is beyond words, it's the feeling of being betrayed. There's no point in saying this. I've done enough since you left for so many years. Besides, you just broke up your engagement and you showed up in front of me with another woman in your arms. Don't you have done anything wrong? Hearing this, Yifan just thought Su Ningshuang was funny. Don't forget, at the last moment of breaking off the engagement, it was she who personally admitted the affair with overseas investor Yang Jian. Yang Jian took revenge today, but whether she was involved or not is another matter. Really? Yifan said, pointing to Yang Jian who came with Liu Han behind him. I have been in the mountains for many years. Didn't you admit your affair with Yang Jian yourself? Now you are biting me back. What is your intention? Yang Jian walked forward slowly and put one hand around Su Ningshuang's shoulder. He was still puzzled. Ningshuang. But when the words came to my lips, I swallowed them back. His eyes wandered over Zhao Simon, filled with surprise and delight. Chapter 10. That's my dad. As Su Ningshuang was still beside him, Yang Jian withdrew his gaze in disappointment. The greed was not concealed at all. He turned to look at Yifan standing beside him, frowning slightly. Yifan? Why are you here? Why can't I be here? Yifan retorted without showing any weakness, looking calmly at the two people in front of him who were arm in arm. Noticing his gaze, Su Ningshuang subconsciously wanted to struggle. But Yang Jian held him tightly, leaving no room for maneuver. Do you know where this is? This is a dinner for our overseas investors. Do you think you are worthy of such a high-end place? What is a stinky loser who just came down from the mountains dreaming about? Yang Jian was arrogant and domineering, with a hint of amusement on the corner of his mouth. While speaking, his eyes never left Zhao Simon. He thought to himself, what kind of shit luck does Yifan have? A young boy from the mountains is engaged to a beautiful woman with a cold temperament like Su Ningshuang. Now that his engagement has been broken off, he has found another extremely charming beauty to be his companion. The two beauties have completely different temperaments, which makes people salivate. It's not your turn to say who I am. Yifan continued to retort, not afraid at all. I think you've been in the mountains for too long, and you think this Jinghai is your shabby place. This is not a place for people like you to enter. I advise you to get out of here as soon as possible, so as not to embarrass yourself later. Yang Jian sneered and turned to look at Zhao Simon beside him. This woman is full of charm, and her every move reveals a hint of seductiveness. Just standing there is enough to attract all men's attention. My beautiful lady, the person next to you is a poor loser who just came down from the mountains. Open your eyes and don't be fooled. Really? Zhao Simon was puzzled, blinking her big eyes and looking at Yifan. Are you a liar? Yifan waved his hands helplessly. Stop it, don't you know if I'm a liar or not? As she spoke, Zhao Simon revealed a faint smile and held Yifan's arm even tighter. That softness also clung tightly to his arm. See? Yifan said he's not a liar. Seeing this scene, Yang Jian's mouth twitched. This silly woman, she was sold and still counting money for others. In his eyes, Yifan could only rely on fraud to get such a top-notch person by his side. Otherwise, based on his poor appearance, why would he do that? I'm hungry, let's go, Yifan. Zhao Simon didn't want to waste any more time talking to the man in front of her, so she made an excuse to leave. Hearing this, Yifan was not polite at all. He nodded and walked towards the Qinzi Qianlu with Zhao Simon. Su Ningshuang was about to call for a stop but was stopped by Yang Jian. Don't be impatient, Ningshuang, he will be in trouble next. This dinner is by invitation only. You can't even get through the door without an invitation. As he spoke, a sinister look flashed across Yang Jian's eyes. He pulled Su Ningshuang and followed Yifan and the others, ready to watch a good show. Wait until they are stopped, and then I will rescue the beauty from the water. When the time comes, you will take the initiative to throw yourself into my arms. When we arrived in front of the Qinzi Qianlu, we saw security guards dressed in uniform black. Before he reached the door, Yang Jian caught up with him again. He flashed in front of Yifan and put his arm around Su Ningshuang. He took out an invitation letter from his pocket and placed it in front of the security guard. Hey, keep an eye on that guy at the back, don't let anyone in without an invitation. Upon hearing this, the security guard saw that it was Yang Jian and bowed repeatedly. Yes. Don't worry, Master Yang. Yifan's mouth twitched, it's just an invitation letter. Having said that, Zhao Simon tactfully took out the invitation letter. I saw that the material of the invitation letter was completely different from Yang Jian's. It is bordered with gold thread and is dark red throughout, making it very luxurious. In contrast, what Yang Jian took out was an ordinary black card without any decoration. Master Yang, our invitation letter seems to be a little different. Yifan shrugged and pretended to be puzzled. This made Yang Jian stunned. When did their group send out such an invitation letter? Heh, I think your invitation is fake. We, the overseas capital, have never sent out such an invitation letter. Yang Jian said this and handed it to the security guard to verify its authenticity. The security guard thought about it again and quickly shook his head. Excuse me, we do not have such an invitation. Secretary Liu Han, who had been following behind, suddenly screamed. You are really something, Yifan. You actually tried to get in with a fake invitation letter. Don't forget that young Master Yang is the young master of overseas capital. Alas. At this time, Su Ningshuang also sighed helplessly. I never thought that Yifan, you are such a person. The overseas capital originally belonged to Yang Jian's family group, and now the security guards are verifying its authenticity. Even Su Ningshuang no longer had any trust in him. Seeing this, Zhao Simon calmly took out her cell phone and dialed a number. Hello, Yarn Yao, is that you? I am here to represent Grandpa at the overseas capital dinner tonight. Now at the door, they are saying my invitation is fake. Hearing what Zhao Simon said, everyone around her laughed playfully. Yang Jian, in particular, was even more sarcastic. Hey, beautiful lady, although you have a hot body and are indeed good-looking, I didn't expect you to be so hypocritical. You even pretended to call my dad. Do you really think that anyone can get close to my dad? Liu Han, the snob, was not to be outdone. That's right, no wonder he teamed up with Yifan. Two swindlers who are so ostentatious, they are a match made in heaven. Yifan looked at the two of them and asked coldly, are you sure? According to Yifan's information network, this overseas capital is just a small subsidiary of the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce. The group is not large, so if you want to cooperate with the Zhao group, you have to queue up behind. Now that the eldest daughter of the Zhao family is here, Yang Jian is simply not worth mentioning. Your son is rude, and I hope Mr. Yang will discipline him. Zhao Simon said this and handed the phone to Yang Jian with a smile. Even when death was imminent, Yang Jian was still stubborn. Hey, you dare to give me your phone? Aren't you afraid that your lie will be exposed? I just think you're a pretty woman, and I don't want you to be fooled by Yifan, a liar. Don't think I will help you. Hearing this, Zhao Simon didn't waste any words. Your father asked you to answer the phone. Okay. Yang Jian laughed sarcastically. I want to see what you have in mind. Yang Jian snatched the phone and started swearing at the person on the other end. Where did this sabai come from? How dare you pretend to be my father? The other party's voice rang out, and Yang Jian was almost frightened to the point of stumbling and falling to the ground. Fuck, Yang Jian, what the hell are you doing with your eyes? You dare to stop Miss Zhao? That's a special invitation letter I sent to the big shots. You should kneel down and apologize to Miss Zhao right now. This familiar voice, who else could it be but his father Yang Yao? Chapter 11, A Hero Saves a Beauty. Yang Jian looked incredulous and was trying to be stubborn. Dad, you got the wrong person, didn't you? This woman was deceived, and the guy she was with was just a loser. Upon hearing this, Yang Yao was furious. The Zhao family is a presence that is enough to make overseas capital tremble. He had sought cooperation many times but to no avail, and now his son actually spoke rudely to President Zhao in person. How come I have a stupid son like you? I don't care who Miss Zhao is with today. Kneel down on the ground and beg Miss Zhao for forgiveness now. If Miss Zhao doesn't forgive you today, I will no longer have you as my son. Yang Yao's words undoubtedly poured cold water on Yang Jian. As the phone call was hung up, the look in his eyes when he looked at Zhao Simon changed from contempt at the beginning to fear. Even his father had to send a special invitation letter and asked him to kneel down and beg for forgiveness. Miss Zhao, I'm sorry. Yang Jian finally lowered his head and apologized to Zhao Simon repeatedly. This made Liu Han and Su Ningshuang dumbfounded. In their eyes, Yang Jian represents the entire overseas capital. Zhao Simon rolled her eyes, then winked at Yifan with a smile on her face. Every frown and smile is full of charm and seductiveness. Mr. Yi, you decide. Do we forgive him? Looking at Su Ningshuang's slightly embarrassed face, Yifan just waved his hand. He was just a small person named Yang Jian, and because Su Ningshuang was here, he didn't want to say much. Let him go. Yifan spoke, and Zhao Simon agreed with a smile. No problem, I'll listen to you. The way they talked sounded like a couple who had been together for a long time. Looking at this scene, Su Ningshuang felt resistance in her heart, but she no longer had the status to speak up to stop it. At this time, another security guard trotted over and slapped the security guard in front of the door. Waste. Then, he looked at Zhao Simon flatteringly. I'm sorry Miss Yi, our director Yang said that it was the work error of these new security guards. He will come to your house to apologize in the future. Yifan no longer wanted to get entangled with Yang Jian, so he went in with Zhao Simon. Seeing them leave, Yang Jian spoke to hide his embarrassment. Ningshuang, I'm sorry, my dad is getting old and confused. I was just dealing with it just now. Yifan may have fooled my dad, but he can't fool me. Although he said this, Yang Jian was getting angrier inside. How could Yifan be able to get to know such a person and have him be so favored by him? No matter who this woman was, he would make her lie in his bed. And as for Yifan, just wait and see. Today is the day you die. It's okay. Su Ningshuang said helplessly, let's go in. How could she not see that this woman next to Yifan was not ordinary? I just wanted to ask Yang Jian a favor, but I couldn't speak. Inside the Qianzi Kaiyanglu, the whole venue was packed with guests. Because overseas capital mainly engages in the pharmaceutical industry, it is closely related to all walks of life and has huge profits. It's still a small company, and many big shots want to get a piece of the pie. As soon as he sat down, Yang Jian completely forgot what had just happened. He kept bragging to Su Ningshuang about the power of overseas capital. Look at these guests, each one of them is a well-known figure. Ningshuang, don't worry, once overseas capital announces its cooperation with the Su Group tonight, Other companies will come to us, and by then, the Su Group will be only one step away from going public. When Liu Han heard this, he flattered her again and again. Thank you so much, Master Yang. Without you, our Su Group would not be what it is today. At the side, Su Ningshuang was immersed in Yifan's attitude just now. He just smiled calmly and agreed, thank you, Master Yang. Yang Jian really enjoyed the feeling of being admired. It's nothing, it's just a small matter. When Ningshuang and I get married, we'll all be one family. There's no need to thank me or not. At the same time, because Zhao Simon is the special guest of this event, she will not sit outside with these people. She had to go backstage to discuss cooperation on behalf of her grandfather, and had no choice but to say goodbye to Yifan. Yifan had nothing to do, so he just found a seat and sat down. He came here to accompany Zhao Simon and had no interest in this kind of dinner. Yang Jian came all the way to plan for Yifan to sit alone on the side. I thought to myself, I didn't expect this guy to be thrown aside so quickly, he is indeed a liar and a gigolo. Thinking of this, he made an excuse to Su Ningshuang and left, then went aside to make a phone call. Aren't you crazy? I want to see today, can you still be crazy without a woman? There was still some time before the dinner started and the guests were chatting away. The atmosphere is peaceful, but there are some short-sighted people. The door was suddenly pushed open by someone, and a man wearing a big gold chain appeared. A man wearing flip-flops and looking arrogant came in. Everyone's face first showed disgust, then turned into shock. If they were not mistaken, this was Neo Chong, the prince of Neo Loan Company. This Neo Loan Company is the company of Neo the top underground gang boss in Jinghai. On the surface, it is a loan business, but in fact, it is just a grey industry. How could such a person appear at a dinner party for overseas capital? I don't know. Could it be that overseas capital is related to Neo? The guests were talking at once, none of them understood what was going on. But Neo Chong didn't care at all, his eyes kept wandering among the crowd. The moment he saw Su Ningshuang, his eyes suddenly lit up. He had never seen anything so exquisite in his life. Beautiful lady, can I borrow your seat? Neo Chong walked forward and spoke to Liu Han, who was standing next to Su Ningshuang. Looking back at Neo Chong's outfit, Liu Han did not hide his disdain. He spoke sarcastically to Yang Jian, who had just returned. Master Yang, don't let some people take advantage of this high-end dinner for overseas capital. Yang Jian gave Neo Chong a look and curled his lips. Don't worry, Secretary Liu, this is the prince that Neo borrowed money from. I've never heard of Neo borrowing money. Liu Han continued. Su Ningshuang finally reacted after hearing the name. After so many years in Jinghai, although Neo's borrowing money sounds rustic, his strength should not be underestimated. Sorry, this place is full, please change seats. Neo Chong didn't care about all that. His saliva was drooling when he looked at Su Ningshuang. No, beautiful lady. I just saw you here and wanted to talk to you. You can't even satisfy me with this request, right? The commotion here quickly attracted the attention of the guests, and Yifan was no exception. Seeing Neo Chong making things difficult for Su Ningshuang, he subconsciously wanted to step forward. But he quickly gave up the idea. Isn't Yang Jian still here? He wants to see what this kid can do. Excuse me, I can give you my business card. Su Ningshuang said this and reached into her bag. At this time, Neo Chong pretended to touch Su Ningshuang's shoulder. Yang Jian was immediately startled. Keep your hands clean. Chapter 12, Taking Action. As Yang Jian said this, he walked forward and slapped Neo Chong's hand away. The two looked at each other and understood each other tacitly. Take your dirty hands away and don't touch anything you shouldn't touch. These words were meant to warn Neo Chong. This also made the surrounding guests look at Yang Jian with admiration. They all knew that Yang Jian was the young master of this overseas capital. But Neo Chong is the prince that Neo borrowed money from. Compared with the two, they are not even on the same level. Now Yang Jian stood up for his woman. This overseas capital young master is really good. With such a person's character, the group he founded must be good. That's right. I didn't want to cooperate at first, but now I see that I'm somewhat interested. It makes me look at this kid with new eyes. Yang Jian's status in the guests' minds rose sharply. Neo Chong snorted coldly and whispered, Master Yang, this is not even enough for you. If you're like this, how can I help you? Neo Chong's voice was so soft that even Su Ningshuang beside him couldn't hear it clearly. Upon hearing this, Yang Jian's face suddenly changed. What are you talking about? I advise you to take care of yourself. If you want to be a hero and save the beauty, you have to see if you have the ability to do so. Get out. Get out now. Yang Jian was filled with regret at this moment, and his voice was trembling. The call he just made was to Neo Chong. He gave the other party 8 million and an invitation letter, asking him to cause trouble for Yi Fan. Who knew that as soon as this kid entered the door, he walked straight towards Su Ningshuang. This was completely contrary to his original plan. Let me go. Master Yang, are you going to turn your back on me? Having said that, Neo Chong once again reached out his hand towards Su Ningshuang. How could he let go of such a stunning beauty so easily? It's just 8 million, doesn't he need it? But this woman, if she missed this opportunity, she would miss it forever. Hearing this, Yang Jian subconsciously took a step back, but still mustered up the courage to open Neo Chong's hand. You, don't mess around. Seeing this, Neo Chong waved his hand towards the back without saying a word. There was a slight rustling sound, and the door was pushed open again. This time, a group of thugs dressed in black came towards them. They all stood behind Neo Chong and shouted, "Boss!" Yang Jian was immediately frightened. He just wanted the other party to cause some trouble, but who knew they would bring so many people? Now, are you still thinking about being a hero and saving the beauty? Neo Chong was arrogant and domineering, and did not take Yang Jian seriously at all. Faced with so many black-clad thugs, the originally sarcastic Liu Han now became silent. Only Su Ningshuang frowned slightly and stood up from her seat. Excuse me, we have to leave now. She realized that she was outnumbered and thought about avoiding the attack for the time being. After all, this is a dinner for overseas capital, no matter how powerful Neo-Er's borrowing is. Nor would they cause trouble in such an occasion and shoot themselves in the foot. Unexpectedly, Neo Chong directly blocked Su Ningshuang's way, with a hint of greed in his eyes. Where do you want to go, pretty girl? I just want the person next to you to switch seats with me. It's not a big deal. If you leave, wouldn't it ruin the fun? At this moment, Su Ningshuang finally understood everything. With such a deep feud, the other party doesn't care about any overseas capital dinner at all. The situation was becoming one-sided and tense. Yi Fan at the side sighed helplessly, then stood up and walked towards this side. Just at this moment, Neo Chong was approaching Su Ningshuang in full view of everyone. A big hand reached forward, determined to take advantage of her. Just when the dirty big hand was about to touch Ningshuang, a cold voice came from behind, "If you dare to touch it today, I will chop off your hand." Neo Chong, whose good deeds were interrupted again and again, had a face full of blood and saliva flying all over his face. Damn, where did this fearless person come from? As he said this, he turned and looked at Yi Fan. Upon closer inspection, he realized that this was the person Yang Jian had taken money from and wanted to cause trouble for him. Oh, it's you, kid. You actually came to me on your own initiative. Yi Fan was a little confused, but he quickly reacted. Although the distance was far just now, he was able to hear the secret between Neo Chong and Yang Jian thanks to his powerful senses. There is a vague word, condition, it seems now. This Neo Chong was actually brought here by Yang Jian just to take revenge on him. He tolerated it again and again, but in return the other party became even more aggressive. I'm going to take this woman away today. I don't know who dares to stop me. Neo Chong roared, and the bodyguards behind him took another step forward. They surrounded Yi Fan directly. Even so, Yi Fan did not show any weakness. I told you, if you dare to touch me today I will chop off your hand. Hearing this, Neo Chong became even more arrogant and domineering. You really think you are a big shot? I want to see what you can do today. Just as Neo Chong was about to take action and Yi Fan was about to move forward. Wait. Su Ningshuang gritted her teeth and said with difficulty, I'll go with you. Everyone was stunned. Is this woman crazy? This Neo Chong was notoriously lustful and extremely cruel towards women. Okay. Hearing this, Neo Chong immediately sneered, since the beautiful girl said so, I don't mind letting this guy go. As he spoke, the dirty big hand reached out towards Su Ningshuang again. But before it touched, a ghostly black shadow flashed by. Before everyone could react, Liu Han suddenly let out a scream. Murder! Neo Chong's outstretched hand fell to the ground with a par. Even though he took 2 seconds to react, the pain spread throughout his body. You are looking for death. I warned you. Yifan said coldly. Come on, destroy him. Neo Chong struggled to squeeze out a few people from between his teeth, his entire facial expression distorted and looking extremely miserable. Suddenly, the black-clad thugs gathered together and rushed towards Yifan. Yifan clenched his fists and punched the man in front of him. The powerful force knocked the 3 people to the ground. Before anyone could be surprised, they saw Yifan punching continuously at a speed that was almost impossible to capture with the naked eye. The punches hit the flesh and caught the group of black-clad thugs off guard. His figure moved back and forth like a ghost. They punched each person they met, and the screams of the 50 thugs echoed throughout the banquet hall. Before everyone could react, they saw a thug in black foaming at the mouth and falling to the ground. When Yifan looked up at Neo Chong again, there was only murderous intent in his eyes. You dare to cause trouble to me with just such a small group of people? Are you tired of living? Just a look was enough to scare Neo Chong to death. He was so panicked that he rolled to Yang Jian's feet. He exclaimed as if he had grasped at a life-saving straw. It was him who gave me 8 million to come and cause trouble for you. I'm sorry, I won't dare to do it again. Please spare my life. I was blind to the truth. Chapter 13 Well acted. Neo Chong's words immediately caused a burst of exclamations from the crowd. It turns out that the whole commotion was directed and acted out by that villain Yang Jian. He paid someone to cause trouble for this young man, but ended up shooting himself in the foot. The good impressions I had of him just now disappeared without a trace. He saw that everyone was looking at him with disgust in their eyes. Yang Jian hurriedly explained, Nonsense, all nonsense. I don't even know you. Hearing this, Neo Chong, who was already frightened by Yifan, quickly produced the evidence. He took out his cell phone and dialed Yang Jian's number without thinking. As a cell phone rang, the ending was undoubtedly confirmed. You're talking nonsense. You made me come to your house to cause trouble for a mere 8 million. Even the invitation letter was added at the last minute. Neo Chong said this, extremely angry. If I knew you were looking for trouble with this gentleman, I wouldn't come. Yifan, who was standing aside, had cold eyes and looked at the two of them as if they were laughing at a joke. He wouldn't mind watching this dog-eat-dog scene a few more times. It was just right to ask Su Ningshuang to take a good look at what kind of waste she had found while he was up the mountain. Seeing that his explanation was not working, Yang Jian looked at Su Ningshuang for help. He saw clearly that Yifan was not a useless son-in-law at all. How can one fight 50 thugs at once and remain unscathed? Even in movies, people wouldn't dare to shoot it like this. The only one who can save him now is Su Ningshuang. Ningshuang, listen to my explanation. This is not the case at all. They teamed up to deceive you. At the end of his rope, Yang Jian pointed at Yifan and Neo Chong and began to confuse right and wrong. Unexpectedly, just one short sentence offended 2 people. Without waiting for Yifan to speak, Neo Chang stood up despite the severe pain in his body and slapped him in the face. Open your eyes and take a good look. This is the record of your transfer to me. The evidence was irrefutable, but Yang Jian still refused to let go. Pretending to be a victim, he kept trying to please Su Ningshuang. It's not this kind of frost, it's all fake, all fake. Such a farce made all the guests laugh at it. As a young master of overseas capital, he was actually frightened at his own banquet. If this gets out, how will overseas investors save face? Su Ningshuang frowned slightly and sighed helplessly. But then, not only did she not blame Yang Jian for his mean behavior, but she pointed the finger at Yifan. Have you made enough noise? Don't you think the scene is not big enough? Yifan almost thought he had heard it wrong and looked at Su Ningshuang in disbelief. Are you talking about me? Yes. Su Ningshuang nodded. You think you are very impressive, right? Do you think you are very powerful? Yifan's figure just now was so tall and majestic. For her, he was willing to fight a group of thugs alone. In just an instant, all the people were killed, leaving no room for the other party to fight back. In contrast, Yang Jian was smooth and cunning, and he was not only rude to Zhao Simon. He even hired people to cause trouble for Yifan and almost dragged himself into the water. But what about all these? Who do you think you are? You're just a small fry who just came down from the mountain. What's the point of being able to fight? Is this the only way you can solve problems with force? Whether it is overseas capital, or the more powerful Neo loan. Making Yifan disappear from the world of Jinghai is as easy as crushing an ant. He won by chance today, but what about the future? Hiding from here and there for the rest of his life? Even now, Yifan still couldn't believe it. These words actually came from Su Ningshuang's mouth. Are you serious, Ningshuang? I was just trying to protect you. Protect me? Did I ask you to protect me? You don't really think that overseas capital and Neo loan will let you go so easily? At this time, the snob Liu Han added fuel to the fire, fearing that it would not be lively enough. That's right, Yifan, do you still think you are the son-in-law of the Su family? We don't need your protection at all. This is all just wishful thinking on your part. Such a polar reversal left everyone present stunned. It was clearly a one-sided counterattack drama, but the tone of the drama completely changed when these two sentences were spoken. What's going on? Why is this woman still speaking for the other party? That's right, it was this young man who saved her from the dire situation. If it weren't for this young man, she would have been kidnapped long ago. How could she still be standing here and talking without any pain in her waist? Su Ningshuang's words served as a reminder to Neo Chong, who was frightened by the situation. I almost forgot that he is the prince of Neo loan group. In Jinghai, no matter who wants to touch him, they have to consider their father's identity. Now being scared like this by this young man, isn't it a disgrace to Neo's loan company? Boy, I advise you to cut your losses in time. So, Neo Chong changed his previous humble and begging expression. Do you know that Neo borrowed money? I am the prince, and Neo is my father. Yifan was already angry at Su Ningshuang's words, and Neo Chong spoke without any hesitation. I didn't want to bother with the other party, but it came to me. Your father is Neo. Yes, you are scared. Is it awesome? Neo Chong was stunned. Didn't he know who his father was? As he spoke, Yifan threw another elbow forward. The powerful impact almost separated Neo Chong's head from his body. He couldn't bear the pain and knelt on the ground. Shut up. I didn't ask you to speak, so just kneel down quietly. He was so domineering that some young girls present almost screamed out loud. This is what it means to stand up for a woman and be a hero to save the beauty. Isn't this exactly like the overbearing CEO in a romance novel? Brother, I can do it. Yifan. Su Ningshuang saw this and shouted fiercely, stop it, leave yourself a way out. The more this happened, the angrier Yifan became. He risked his life to save others, but was blamed in return. How can such a thing be possible in this world? Really? You told me to stop, so I tricked you into continuing. As he said that, Yifan kicked Neo Chong's head hard again. Blood splattered everywhere, staining the seats in the venue red. Su Ningshuang and Liu Han were both shocked and vomited subconsciously. Have you had enough of the trouble? No. Yifan said coldly, punching Neo Chong again and again. On the other hand, Neo Chong felt very aggrieved. My aunt, if it doesn't work, let us stop trying to persuade her. It's me who gets beaten, not you. Brother, I was wrong. I won't do it again. No matter how Neo Chong begged for mercy, Yifan seemed to be deaf to him. He didn't stop until his body was covered in blood. Su Ningshuang had a look of disappointment on her face and felt very helpless inside. Her words were not meant to provoke Yifan at all. Instead, he wanted to protect the other party from the overwhelming revenge. What a self-torture trick! Well acted. At this moment, the fearless Yang Jian exclaimed. A middle-aged man also walked out from the backstage. It was Yang Yao. Chapter 14 Big Order. Seeing his father finally arrive, Yang Jian was as happy as a 200-pound fat man. The backer has finally arrived, and now it's his turn to take control of the situation. It's just Yifan, Neo Chong, he has to shrink back when he sees his father. I didn't expect that, Yifan, you are so cruel. The show was great, but it will soon be over. As he spoke, Yang Yaojing walked towards the few people. What no one expected was that he was not there to stand up for his son. Instead, he walked up to Yang Jian without saying a word and slapped him in the face. Rebellious son. You even dared to hit the prince who borrowed money from Neo. I think you have grown wings. Hearing this, Yang Jian was speechless. What did this have to do with him? The other party brought 50 people with him. What right did he have? As Yang Yao spoke, he repeatedly apologized to Neo Chong, who was lying on the ground in a trance. "I'm really sorry, Master Neo, I was blind and didn't recognize the great man." The ups and downs of the plot, with twists and turns again and again, are simply overwhelming. Neo Chong was in great pain. The father and son from the Yang family were truly a pair of trouble. He can't even tell the difference between a big king and a small king. What is he for? Dad, you misunderstood. It wasn't me who beat him up. It was Yifan. They are in cahoots with each other and staged a good show to frame your son. You have to take charge of it for me. After hearing this, Yang Yao noticed the thugs all over the place. There was also Yifan, who had a blank expression on his face but exuded a chill. I heard a story backstage about a man taking on 50 thugs alone, and I didn't expect it to be true. You beat Master Neo. Facing Yang Yao's question, Yifan did not hide his feelings at all. Yes. Do you know Neo's Loan? The largest underground gang in Jinghai. I've heard of it. It's nothing more than a bigger ant. Such an arrogant young man is rare these days. Well, you're crazy. Yang Yao responded and walked through the crowd to their high platform in the middle of the banquet hall. Dear guests, this was just a short episode. I hope I didn't disturb your enjoyment. The dinner will go on as usual and things will be dealt with soon. When Yang Yao showed up, everyone naturally had no objections. After all, this is a banquet hosted by overseas capital, so we have to give them some face. As the dinner continued, Yang Yao returned here again. Tell someone to send Master Neo to the hospital. My dear little brother, please give me some face and let this matter go. Hearing this, Yifan just waved his hand and said nothing. A Yang Yao couldn't even earn an ounce of face in front of him. He just didn't want to continue to be entangled with Su Ningshuang. This woman has really changed. Yang Yao called his disappointing son aside and gave him a good lecture. First, he didn't recognize the important person and spoke rudely. Now he has provoked Neo, the prince who borrowed money from him, and is also at odds with a powerful young man. Such a rebellious son will do nothing but cause trouble. Yifan and Su Ningshuang were left alone. They just looked at each other and then parted ways tacitly. Returning to her seat, Su Ningshuang, seemingly calm, was actually quite frightened by the scene just now. First there was a huge crowd of thugs, and then Yifan challenged them all alone. The scenes replayed themselves like a movie, empty and unreal. She had always thought that Yifan, who had an easygoing personality, was actually so powerful. Boss Su, do you want to add fuel to the fire? Liu Han's face was full of cunning. Su Ningshuang knew very well what she meant by adding fuel to the fire. Thinking of Yifan's selfless back just now, the gap in her heart seemed to be torn open again. No need, we should thank Yifan. Meanwhile, backstage at the dinner party, Zhao Simon's long white legs were hanging casually as she held a glass of red wine and looked at the surveillance screen with amusement. She saw everything that just happened in the banquet hall. Although she had seen how powerful Yifan was, she never expected him to be so strong. It takes one man less than a minute to beat 50 trained fighters. It was beyond her understanding and she couldn't believe it was true. It's just that the woman named Su Ningshuang seems to still have feelings for Yifan. Stop it at the critical moment, use the most vicious words, and say the most caring words. The same goes for Yifan. It is impossible for him to have no feelings for this woman at all. Thinking of this, Zhao Simon's mouth corners raised slightly. She secretly said, no man that I, Zhao Simon, like will escape. As for Yifan's safety, she didn't seem to be worried. How could someone who can be on good terms with President Lin be afraid of a few insignificant little people? The fast came to an end, and Yang Jian returned to his seat dejectedly. As soon as he came back, he said angrily, this Yifan put on a good show. Even my dad couldn't see the floor. Ningshuang, don't worry, Yang Jian, am not that kind of person at all. Su Ningshuang's ears were almost calloused from listening, so she could only respond with a few casual remarks. She knew Yang Jian very well, but she was a strong woman who had worked hard in the workplace and built up the Su company. The other person's character is not the most important thing, the benefits they bring are. At present, the easiest way for Su's company to go public is to tap into overseas capital. A small meeting behind the scenes of the dinner ended. Zhao Simon also came out and searched the entire venue for Yifan. As soon as she sat down, she casually fiddled with her waist-length hair, and her every move was full of charm. Mr. Yi, I have a surprise for you. Surprise? What is it? Wait a moment, and you'll know. As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yao came up to the stage with a document. He fiddled with the microphone twice and looked towards Yifan and the others unconsciously. Dear guests, I have something to announce here. Our overseas capital has just reached a long-term cooperation with the Su Group. Everyone looked at each other in bewilderment, as they didn't know much about the Su Group. Among the many groups in Jinghai, its scale is not large. Upon hearing the news, Yang Jian hurriedly took credit for it to Su Ningshuang. Did you hear me, Ningshuang? I told you that you can rest assured. As long as I talk to my dad about it, this cooperation is a done deal. Seeing this, Liu Han quickly flattered, you are worthy of being young Master Yang. You are much better than Yifan, a barbarian who only knows how to use force. With the support of overseas capital, Su Group is one step closer to listing. This is a great joy for Su Ningshuang. Thank you, Master Yang. Thanks to your good words in front of Director Yang, our Su Group was able to get such a large order. At the same time, on the other side, Yifan looked at Zhao Simon beside him suspiciously, puzzled. This is your surprise for me. I don't feel surprised at all. Zhao Simon shook her head slightly, don't worry, the surprise is still to come. Then, Yang Yao spoke again and yelled at Su Ningshuang. Of course, Miss Ningshuang, the director of the Su Corporation, will soon become my overseas capital daughter-in-law. Chapter 15, Medicinal Materials Storehouse. Hearing this, Yifan was stunned. He looked at Zhao Simon in disbelief, and subconsciously spoke in a serious tone. I really don't like this surprise. All the guests present looked at Yifan and Su Ningshuang. Just now, these two men staged a scene of a hero saving a beauty. At that time, Yang Jinker hid behind the woman's butt and didn't even dare to fart. Now she is going to become the daughter-in-law. Is this the story of the princess and the guard? Even if the guards protect the princess all her life, she will eventually marry the prince. I would rather destroy a temple than break up a marriage, but now I can't stand it any longer. What a great overseas capital, it's really going to tear its face off. If you do things this way, won't you be a rat crossing the street in Jinghai, and everyone will shout and beat you? The eyes of the masses are undoubtedly sharp and they can all see that this is far-fetched. But overseas investor Yang Yao is not stupid. Announcing such news at this critical juncture is simply a slap in his own face. However, the eldest daughter of the Zhao family threatened to pay with orders worth hundreds of millions. He really couldn't find any reason to refuse. Yifan's reaction was within Zhao Simon's expectations. Why not, Mr. Yi? Doesn't Su Ningshuang want to list the Su Group? I'm helping her. In this way, overseas capital can legitimately provide support. When the time comes, it will be easy to go public. Yifan's face was full of displeasure, but his heart was filled with mixed emotions. He wanted to refute and speak up for Su Ningshuang, but he couldn't find a reasonable identity. Now the two of them are just the most familiar strangers who have just broken off their engagement. Forget it, it doesn't matter. Yifan shook his head and put the matter behind him. After you take care of Miss Zhao's safety tonight, remember to give me the Qianshan Snow Lotus and the key to their medicinal materials storehouse. Of course, as for how Miss Zhao wants to play, it has nothing to do with me. After the announcement, the whole audience was in an uproar, but Yang Yao continued to add fuel to the fire. The engagement will be finalized soon, and will meet at the same place. Upon hearing the news, Su Ningshuang's face turned green. This was not a planned step, and her feelings for Yang Jian could only be considered as taking advantage of him. There is no other discussion, let alone marriage. The business world is like a battlefield. She can make sacrifices, but she cannot lose her life. Ningshuang, my dad has proposed to you. From now on, you will be a member of the overseas capital family. Going public is just a small matter. Many big orders will definitely come to us on their own initiative. Yang Jian's words now seemed full of irony to Su Ningshuang. Originally, she wanted Yang Jian to be her stepping stone, but now it seems that she was just making wedding dresses for others. There were constant shouting from the stage, so Su Ningshuang had no choice but to bite the bullet and walk towards the stage. The scenes just now were still lingering in her mind. She couldn't open her mouth when asked to tell the story of herself and Yang Jian. Seeing that Su Ningshuang didn't say anything, Yang Yao on the side hurriedly reminded her. He whispered softly in the other person's ear. It's not a bad thing for you if Xiao Jian marries you. If you want the Su Group to make further progress, this sacrifice is necessary. Following Yang Yao's reminder, Su Ningshuang had no choice but to speak with difficulty. In her opinion, this was completely fabricated. The tryst in the woods, the submarine party, they were all fake. The purpose is to convince the guests so that they can have a wedding banquet. Win over these companies, big and small, gradually improve your own strength and protect yourself. The moment it goes on the market, it will be worth it. Yifan no longer had the heart to listen any further and could only sigh helplessly. He knew Su Ningshuang too well. When this woman lied, her eyes would look around. The dinner reached its climax when Yang Yao announced his engagement. The next period of time is when everyone gets together to discuss business. Zhao Simon's business focus was not on these people, so she took Yifan and left first. After leaving Qianzi Qianlu, a familiar Rolls-Royce drove over. In the car, Zhao Simon finally fulfilled her promise and took out the key to the precious medicine storehouse. Mr. Yi, the medicine storehouse is in a secret room in the backyard of the Zhao family's ancestral home. Should we go get it now? Or should we find some time? I have been with Zhao Simon for so long just for this medicinal material warehouse. Yifan naturally didn't want to neglect them, so he invited the group to go to the Zhao family's ancestral home. It's just that the ancestral home is located in a remote area, in the woods in the suburbs. While closing her eyes to rest, Zhao Simon fell into a light sleep without knowing when. This woman, who was so charming and beautiful in every move, now had her cherry lips open, and she no longer looked like she did during the day. At this moment, Zhao Simon suddenly lost her balance and leaned towards Yifan. Holding the soft and tender jade in his arms, Yifan couldn't help but tremble in his heart. After living in the mountains for so many years, he has long regarded beauty as dirt. I think I have enough self-control now, but I am facing the devil Zhao Simon. Which man can wave his hand and say he is not interested? Especially his willful and eccentric style of behavior, it is hard not to love him. Despite this, Yifan still gently straightened Zhao Simon and leaned her against the backrest. Su Ningshuang's decision to break off the engagement had a huge impact. Right now, Yifan doesn't want to have too much contact with other women. An hour passed quickly, and a small building made entirely of wood, which looked a little weird in the dark, came into view. As the Rolls-Royce drove into the courtyard, the lights suddenly came on. Only then did Yifan see the entire Zhao family ancestral home. Their whole structure is made of wood and decorated in traditional Chinese style, and the overall look is magnificent. There are mountains and rivers inside, and it is backed by a bright green forest, which makes it even more mysterious. It covers an area of several thousand hectares, which is so large that one cannot see the end of it in the dark. Are we there yet? The light flashed, and Zhao Simon woke up from her drowsiness. When she opened her eyes, she saw Yifan looking into her eyes, her pretty face slightly reddened. Let's go, let's go. Under the light, Yifan's handsome face became more delicate. The masculine aura wrapped Zhao Simon tightly, and a few charming scents rose in the air. But in Yifan's heart, all this turned into one sentence: hurry up, I've been waiting for so long that the flowers are all withered. The two got out of the car and went to the backyard, and Zhao Simon handed the key to Yifan. After pointing out the specific location, he waved goodbye. I won't bother you anymore. I'm going to go to the side yard to take a nap. Call me when you're ready. Zhao Simon yawned and said goodbye, leaving Yifan alone. Such a precious item, naturally he didn't want anyone to bother him. The door to the herbal medicine storehouse is just a simple, low-quality wooden door. Just when Yifan thought it was just a cover-up, he was shocked when he pushed the door open. I saw that inside the wooden door, there was actually a 2-meter-high metal safe door. Open it again, and you will see the storehouse of medicinal materials that many doctors covet. As soon as I opened the door, a strong herbal smell hit my nose. In the middle of the huge medicinal materials warehouse is the carefully preserved precious Tianshan snow lotus. Yifan has collected more than half of the 8 rare medicinal herbs. I believe it won't be long before it will come in handy. Chapter 16, Plea. After strolling around the medicine storehouse and taking a few herbs, Yifan left. When we returned to the ancestral home, Zhao Simon had already woken up. What do you think, Mr. Yi? My grandfather's storehouse of medicinal herbs is quite rare. Yifan smiled and said, as expected of the Zhao family, they have a profound foundation. By the way, next time if you have any precious medicinal materials, remember to contact me and I will buy them at a high price. Hearing this, Zhao Simon approached Yifan with a slight smile. She put her hands on her shoulders, looking very charming. Mr. Yi wants it, and I will give it to you with both hands. Why talk about money? It will hurt our feelings. Yifan smiled awkwardly. This woman was so charming that it was really hard to resist. At the same time, Neo borrowed money. Neo was crossing his legs, and a woman was squirming under him. What did you say? Is there anyone in Jinghai who dares to touch my second son? The younger brother trembled and said, Brother Neo, do you need us to teach him a lesson? Get out. Neo roared and pushed the woman away. 50 thugs couldn't stop him, so I'll go there myself. I want to see who dares to be so arrogant in Jinghai. After saying goodbye to Zhao Simon, Yifan wandered the street alone. After living in the mountains for many years, suddenly there is no place to live. The engagement of many years was also cancelled. Things in life are unpredictable. At this time, several black business cars suddenly stopped beside Yifan. Then a Bentley followed and a burly man got out. Hey, you're the one who beat up my son. Hearing this, Yifan reacted quickly. It seems that this person is Neo. Yes, it's me. Yifan said calmly, not taking the other person seriously at all. Seeing being ignored like this, Neo suddenly got angry. As expected of a young man, so arrogant. He beat up my son and didn't even take me seriously. Today I'll show you that Neo, I'm not someone you can easily mess with. As he spoke, Neo waved his hand and a crowd of people gathered behind him. Yifan's eyes suddenly turned cold. Why don't you ask me why I beat your son? Why? It doesn't make sense to me, Neo. Because I'm the truth. Suddenly, a group of black-clad thugs rushed straight towards Yifan. Under the dim street lights, a figure flickered like a ghost. There were a few muffled thuds, and many thugs fell to the ground. I only heard his voice but didn't see Yifan. Soon, nearly 100 thugs in black were foaming at the mouth and unable to get up amid screams. Seeing this, Neo became interested. Hey, when I first heard you fight against my 50 thugs alone, I was a little skeptical. I didn't expect him to be so powerful. It surprised me a little. As he spoke, Neo slowly took out his cell phone and pressed it. In an instant, nearly twice as many black business cars appeared as before. Neo looked at Yifan and said coldly, 2 fists cannot beat for hands. I have 200 thugs here. Let's see if you can get out alive today. If you dare to touch my son, Neo, you should think about the consequences. Just as he finished speaking, there was a sudden engine sound coming from the distance. A red Ferrari came speeding over, rushing through the crowd and stopping beside Yifan. The people who got in the car were Su Ningshuang and Secretary Liu Han. Brother Neo, this is a misunderstanding. Half an hour ago, Su Group. Su Ningshuang felt uneasy, always feeling that Yifan would be in trouble. Liu Han, do you think Neo will seek revenge on Yifan? Tonight. To be honest, Mr. Su, the engagement has been cancelled anyway, and you have done your best to persuade him today. Who can say for sure what will happen next? Liu Han replied. Based on the rumors about Neo's personality, I always feel that Yifan is in danger. Su Ningshuang said helplessly. Don't think about it, Mr. Su. He deserves it. As he spoke, Su Ningshuang felt a chill on her back. She couldn't just sit there and wait to die. Come on Liu Han, take your bank card and follow me out. The two of them had been searching the streets for Yifan, and only then did they see a group of thugs in black. He was dressed similarly to the one at the dinner party and drove straight in. Unexpectedly, Yifan was really surrounded. Ever since Su Ningshuang got off the car, Neo's eyes have been staring at her. There is such a stunning beauty in Jinghai, how come he has never seen her before? Girl, are you here to plead for this boy? Hearing this, Su Ningshuang nodded. It was your son who offended me first, Yifan was just helping him. This matter has nothing to do with him directly. I am a director of the Su Group. I think we can talk about it. Yifan never expected that Su Ningshuang would come to plead for him at this time. At the dinner, she kept asking people to stop, for fear of provoking Neo. Thinking of this, he understood completely. Su Ningshuang has a sharp tongue but a soft heart. In fact, she is afraid that she cannot bear such revenge. Neo grinned and became interested in this. Let's talk. There's nothing that can't be discussed. Hearing this, Su Ningshuang breathed a sigh of relief. I thought that it was because of my identity that things had turned around. Unexpectedly, Neo continued, "It's just not here, but on the bed." Suddenly, Liu Han behind him couldn't sit still anymore. "You're talking nonsense. Our chairman sincerely wants to discuss compensation with you. Am I not sincere? This kid beat my son like that, it's good enough that I didn't kill him directly," Neo said with a laugh. Su Ningshuang frowned slightly and took out a bank card. "Here is 5 million, enough for your son's medical expenses. I'm not short of money. Do you think I look short of money? So what do you want? You? As long as you keep me happy tonight, I will let this guy go." Su Ningshuang looked coldly. "Besides this, I will try my best to do whatever you want." Hearing this, Neo looked Su Ningshuang up and down without disguising his greedy gaze. "So there's nothing to talk about." As soon as he finished speaking, the 200 black-clad thugs behind him were ready to take action. Faced with such a situation, Su Ningshuang plucked up her courage. "We are all businessmen, and there is nothing that money can't solve. 10 million, let us go, plus a 5 million order. This is already Su Ningshuang's bottom line, and it cannot be increased any further. She came here rashly recently without even thinking about the consequences. I've already said that I'm not short of money. If you serve me well in bed, I'll give you another 10 million. How about that?" Neo sneered. The atmosphere suddenly dropped to freezing point, and Su Ningshuang felt scared. It seems that Neo has never thought about talking. Like father, like son, and Neo Chong is a lustful man. I didn't expect his father to be the same, they are simply carved in the same mold. No, Mr. Su, let's retreat first," Liu Han said quietly, looking at the black-clad thugs beside him. At this moment, Yi Fan, who had been silent all this time, suddenly punched out. It went straight towards Neo's face with a bang. "There's nothing to talk about, just go together." Neo was hit hard by the punch and immediately fell to one knee. Chapter 17, Sudden Death. 200 thugs instantly surrounded Yi Fan and his companions. Neo covered his head and almost roared, "Come on! Beat the man to death and bury him. Send the woman to the bed, I'm going to teach her a lesson." Su Ningshuang's face turned pale, her voice trembling. "Yi Fan, look at what you have done. It could have been a minor incident, why are you so impulsive? This old guy is so rude and doesn't even want to talk. Just take the car and leave. Leave this to me," Yi Fan said coldly. He took a quick step forward and struck the oncoming thug head on with a powerful blow. At this point, Su Ningshuang was still hesitant, so Liu Han quickly pulled her into the car. "Boss Su, you've done enough. Go." The red Ferrari sped away, and Yi Fan let go completely. Just now, because Su Ningshuang was there, he couldn't take care of the whole thing while taking care of the beginning. Now, it's time to make this old thing pay the price. Come on. Come on. Neo had blood on his face and roared with impotence and rage. The sky was suddenly covered with dark clouds. The drizzle fell and suddenly it poured down. In the dark rainy night, Yi Fan kept rushing forward like a god of war. Wherever he went, no one could withstand a punch. The black-clad thugs fell down in large numbers, and the sound of thunder mixed with screams was endless. Seeing that the thugs' speed was visibly decreasing, Neo became a little panicked. "Are you brainless? Take the knife, where is the knife?" More than 100 thugs fell, and even Yi Fan couldn't touch them. This was a one-sided crushing massacre. When the black-clad thugs heard Neo's order, they immediately pulled out their daggers. But it was too late, because the last few black-clad thugs were wiped out in the action. At this moment, Neo finally realized that he had offended the wrong person. You little. No, big brother, spare my life. I was blind and didn't recognize you, the great Buddha." Neo quickly begged for mercy, playing the role of a man who can bend and stretch. In the darkness, Yi Fan gradually approached Neo. He looked down at Neo, who was kneeling on the ground, and slapped him in the face. "You shouldn't say those things to my woman, maybe I can spare your life," Yi Fan said coldly without a trace of expression. That extremely majestic and oppressive feeling almost scared Neo to the point of peeing his pants. "I'm sorry, big brother. I know I was wrong." As he said that, he suddenly reacted and took out his cell phone. "I have money, brother, I have money. I'll give you whatever you want, 100 million, 200 million. As long as you can spare my life, I'll give it to you." Hearing this, Yi Fan raised the corner of his mouth with a hint of amusement. I'm not short of money. Just as Yifan was about to attack, the black muzzle of a gun was pointed at his head. Neo had a cunning look on his face, almost insane. Har har, you are such a gullible guy, money. You're dreaming. I saw Neo holding a gun, looking very arrogant. Yifan sneered, it seems that you won't cry until you see the coffin. Just when Neo thought he had won, a dark shadow appeared in front of him like a flash, holding a pistol in one hand. The steel pistol was bent into a crooked shape. It's just a gun, why are you so crazy? Neo suddenly screamed and his worldview completely collapsed. What happened to the agreement that the gun would be fastest within 10 steps, and extremely fast and powerful beyond 10 steps? What was that just now, a flash? Brother, I was just joking just now. Neo forced a smile awkwardly. My back felt cold and my forehead was covered with sweat. Even the gun is useless to Yifan, what else can he struggle for? Yifan stopped talking nonsense and punched out with all his strength. Along with thunder, a faint light hit Yifan's face. Those cold eyes were full of murderous intent. The next morning, Jinghai was in an uproar. Overnight, Neo, chairman of Neo Loan, died suddenly on the street. Su Ningshuang hadn't slept all night and breathed a sigh of relief when she saw the news. Director Su, please read the news. Liu Han rushed into the office and shouted anxiously. I've seen it. Su Ningshuang said tiredly, and then fell asleep. She couldn't imagine how Yifan managed to break out of the encirclement among so many black-clad thugs. I dare not even imagine how Neo died tragically. Why didn't she realize before that Yifan was so powerful? Could it be that I have never cared about this fiancé? Neo borrowed money within the group. Underground gangs gathered to mourn collectively. At the front desk, Neo Chong burst into tears, full of regret. He never imagined that his actions would kill his father. Master, we will avenge the boss. Don't be too sad, young master. We will make the person who killed the boss pay the price. Yes, he dared to touch our boss. I think that person is tired of living. Neo Chong was so sad that he fainted. At the same time, Yifan, who had been wandering all night, arrived at Sakura Mountain. This is where he went up the mountain and practiced seclusion for many years. An old man with white hair was walking towards me, and it seemed that he didn't have much time left. You're here, Xiaoye. What delicious food did you bring? Yifan handed over the bag in his hand and said with a smile, just a little breakfast. Zilong Babo. This is a rare thing. When the old man saw the food, he immediately smiled. I couldn't wait to get into the wooden house nearby and eat with relish. Yifan chased after him and sat on the floor of the dilapidated wooden house. Grandpa, you won't blame me for coming back just after I came down the mountain, will you? Hearing this, the old man snorted coldly. Strange, why not? I've already told you that you should be well and happy down in the mountains with your wife and children. Why do you care about an old man like me? Ningshuang and I broke off the engagement. Yifan was helpless. When the old man heard this, he picked up a steamed dumpling and smashed it on Yifan's head. Nonsense. Why would you cancel the engagement? What's wrong with Ningshuang? Yifan's mouth twitched. No, she broke off the engagement with me. The old man suddenly looked disappointed. You went down the mountain for one day and you lost the wife I prepared for you? You are amazing. Seeing that the old man was angry, Yifan quickly changed the topic. It's okay. Originally, I just wanted to save Grandma first. Hearing this, the old man became even more furious. I told you, you don't need to save me, just take care of yourself. Yifan took out the Qianshan snow lotus he had obtained yesterday and placed it on the small table. This is the finest Qianshan snow lotus, which has been purified. The moment he saw the Qianshan snow lotus, the old man's frown finally relaxed. Alas, you've grown up and I can't control you anymore. It's up to you. Just don't come back to the mountains as much as possible. Girls nowadays can't stand poor guys. The old man said this and took out a piece of red card from a drawer beside him. He slammed his hand on the table and said helplessly, I didn't want to give it to you in the first place, but now that the engagement has been broken off, I might as well just give it to you. Yifan looked forward curiously. What is this? After seeing the words clearly, he was shocked. Why is there still an engagement? Chapter 18 Mystification. The old man looked at Yifan's reaction and chuckled. You didn't expect that your grandfather had a backup plan for you. I was afraid that you wouldn't live up to your expectations. Fortunately, I made preparations for a rainy day. Yifan didn't say anything, he picked up the engagement and smashed it to pieces. Although he had already broken off the engagement with Su Ningshuang, he could not be disloyal to her because of her unkindness. What's more, he risked his life to rush into the crowd to beg for mercy last night. Today I took another marriage contract, what's the matter? Hey, the old man screamed, what are you doing, kid? I wanted to stop it, but it was too late. Okay, now you've grown strong enough to even break up your engagement. In that case, go get Ningshuang back for me, or else don't say that this old man doesn't recognize you. Before Yifan could speak again, the old man stood up and tried to chase him away. He pushed, pulled, and yanked Yifan out. Get lost. Either bring Ningshuang with you, or never come back. Yifan sighed helplessly. This old man was really stubborn. He is still young, there is no need to rush into marriage. At this time, Yifan didn't know yet the name on the marriage contract that he tore up without even looking at it. It turned out to be Zhao. After coming down the mountain, Yifan received a phone call. Hello, is this Mr. Yi? My grandfather wants to meet you and thank you in person. The person who came was Zhao Simon, whose charming voice was very recognizable. As he had nothing to do, Yifan agreed. After a while, a Rolls-Royce stopped in front of him. After getting in the car, we headed straight to the Zhao family's ancestral home. Mr. Yi, I'm sorry for not welcoming you in person. Before reaching the door, I saw a white-haired old man standing at the door to greet me. Old Mr. Zhao was hunched over and had been waiting at the door since early morning. The old man even came out to greet me. I feel very honored. Go back quickly, Mr. Zhao, and take care of yourself. Zhao Simon supported the old man, and they entered the ancestral home together. After sitting down, Mr. Zhao clapped his hands. Soon several bodyguards came in carrying boxes and placed them neatly on the table. This is a thank you gift, Brother Yi must accept it. You are my lifesaver. If I don't take a penny, I really don't know where to put my old face. There were boxes of cash, which at a glance seemed to be worth tens of millions. If someone else saw it, they would quickly put it away. But to Yifan, these are just external things. No need, Mr. Zhao. The prerequisite for curing your illness is the Qianshan Snow Lotus. Now I have received it, and I have also taken a few herbs from the herbal medicine warehouse. How can it be said that I have not taken a penny? Hearing Yifan say this, Mr. Zhao laughed heartily. There aren't many young people like you who can handle 20 million in cash without blinking an eye. He is good at both literature and martial arts, and he has such determination. No wonder Simon likes him. When Zhao Simon, who was standing by, heard what Mr. Zhao said, her pretty face suddenly blushed. She covered her face shyly and whispered, Grandpa, what nonsense are you talking about? When did I ever say such a thing? Hey, little girl, you really think I can't see it, right? As he spoke, Mr. Zhao deliberately moved closer to Yifan. I suggested you come today last night, and the girl was so happy. Yifan responded with a smile, looking at Zhao Simon's graceful figure, which unexpectedly had a different flavor. At this moment, there was a sudden noise upstairs and a familiar voice sounded. Sister. I can't find my underwear. Did you sneak away? We are the same size. As she spoke, Zhao Xiao poked her head toward the stairwell. At a glance, he saw Mr. Zhao and Yifan sitting in the living room. Her face immediately turned red with shame and she screamed back to her room, Why is this liar here too? They smiled at each other, and the atmosphere became a little awkward. Yifan recalled Zhao Xiao's appearance just now and felt that something was strange. Mr. Zhao, Miss Zhao, can I go up and take a look? Hearing this, both of them nodded. The upstairs is that little girl's territory, but you can go up if you want. As long as you don't mind the mess and the noise from that girl, it's fine. After getting permission, Yifan went upstairs directly from one side. Judging from the sound of the door closing just now, he knocked on a side door. Zhao Xiao's aggrieved voice was suddenly heard from inside. Who is it? I'm fine, don't worry about me. Yifan's mouth twitched, and he said helplessly, It's me, the liar. The door opened with a click, and Zhao Xiao pretended to shout downstairs. Yifan quickly covered her mouth and pushed her into the room. He threw it directly on the bed and made a hushing gesture. Don't shout. I'm here to treat you. Zhao Xiao's face was full of suspicion, but fortunately she gave up the idea of shouting for the time being. However, she still refused to accept Yifan in front of her. Humph. After cheating that one, you still want to cheat this one? Do you think it's so easy to make money from our Zhao family? Don't think I'm stupid. I was just pretending to save my grandfather. They can't see it, but I can. Listening to these ridiculous words, Yifan was actually amused by her. What kind of logic is this? It's a joke if you tell it to others. In this case, he can only speak with strength. Stretch out your arm. I'll feel your pulse. This is free, right? Besides, I didn't take a penny from your family, so don't frame a good person. Zhao Xia rolled her eyes, although she was somewhat reluctant inside. But he still stretched out his hand for some unknown reason. Hey, I have no objection to you taking my pulse. After all, you said you know a little bit. But remember, don't try to blackmail me. At the moment of taking the pulse, Yifan's face became serious. In the face of Zhao Xiao's words, he ignored her and asked questions instead. Have you been feeling weak lately? And you woke up in the middle of the night with severe stomach pain. And the symptoms are getting worse and worse. Sometimes the pain is so severe that I want to kill myself by banging my head against the wall. Zhao Xia was surprised when she heard this. This guy is truly amazing. Last time I made up a story and it all matched, how could it be the same today? Seeing her expression, Yifan understood without further explanation. Before, I was only taking care of Mr. Zhao in the ward and didn't specifically treat Zhao Xiao. I just discovered the abnormality today, fortunately it's not too late. So, you really understand something? Zhao Xiao asked doubtfully. More than that. It may be more than you think. Fortunately, you let me feel your pulse today, otherwise. Yifan kept the secret a secret, which scared Zhao Xiao to death. What else? Tell me now, it's so urgent. Otherwise you will die soon. Hearing this, Zhao Xia rolled her eyes, even though the symptoms were correct. But in her eyes, it was just simple dysmenorrhea and not that serious at all. Don't try to fool me. Many doctors nowadays are deliberately mysterious just to cheat people. Yifan was helpless, wondering where this little girl got her ideas from. Being a doctor is also a profession, so it is normal for there to be some bad apples. But he can guarantee that 99% of doctors are good. I'm not kidding, this is a chronic poison that should have been in your body for a long time. Chapter 19 Cold Poison. Yifan looked so serious that Zhao Xia was scared to death. She had only seen such a situation when Yifan was giving acupuncture to her grandfather. Are you serious, Yifan? Is there really poison in my body? That's impossible. I only go between school and home. Zhao Xia still had her doubts, even though she was beginning to fear the consequences. Let's not talk about the cause of the disease for now. It's better to suppress the toxin as soon as possible. How to suppress it? Take Chinese medicine. Zhao Xia wondered. Yifan thought for a while and nodded. Chinese medicine is definitely indispensable. Hearing this, the originally well-behaved Zhao Xia suddenly became displeased. After going around in circles, I still have to sell medicine. No, I don't like Chinese medicine, and you must be selling it at a very high price. Yifan rolled his eyes. This little girl came from such a prominent family. Even if he really took the money, it would be just a drop in the bucket for the Zhao family. I won't charge you any money. It's just a return gift for the herbs in Mr. Zhao's herb storehouse. When Zhao Xia heard that no money would be charged, she became nervous. Are you sure? It's absolutely true. Yifan said helplessly. Okay then, I'll let you try. Anyway, I can't sleep because of the pain lately. Zhao Xia was a little arrogant. After receiving a positive answer, Yifan prepared to treat him. But he still needs to go downstairs to get the silver needle. Stay here and don't move. I'll go get the silver needle. When Zhao Xia heard this, she hurriedly said, Hey, call my sister up here, I feel uneasy without her watching over me. No. Yifan answered subconsciously. Huh? Why? Zhao Xia was puzzled. The look he gave Yifan became increasingly suspicious, as if something was strange. No reason, I just don't want another person to be there. Besides, I need to insert an injection into your lower abdomen, so you can't wear so many clothes. Hearing this, Zhao Xiao immediately jumped up from the bed. He picked up the fruit knife beside him, pointed at Yifan and said coldly, "Don't come over here. I knew you had bad intentions." As he said that, he yelled downstairs, "Help me, sister. Help me, grandpa. Someone is trying to do something bad to me." Seeing this, Yifan stepped forward and covered her mouth. However, he did not notice that his whole body was pressed on her, and their postures were extremely ambiguous. Zhao Xiao looked terrified and kept trying to struggle. "Sure. Why are you yelling? Who is trying to take advantage of you? I was just afraid that your sisters would misunderstand me." Zhao Xiao was so frightened that she didn't care about so many things. He bit off Yifan's hand desperately and took the opportunity to shout again, "Help!" The whole person has lost his mind, and all he has left is the desire to survive. In desperation, Yifan pulled her over again and told her the truth. "Don't shout. Your grandfather just wanted to marry your sister to me. If he sees you stripping naked in front of me, I don't know where you'll put your face." Zhao Xiao, who was originally terrified, was stunned when she heard this. What? Her sister is actually going to marry a charlatan? Yifan then loosened his hands and looked helplessly at Zhao Xiao, who was already in tears. "You said, my grandfather wants to marry my sister to you? Stop kidding me." Zhao Xiao smiled bitterly. "Who are you looking down on? Do you still want to be cured?" As soon as she finished speaking, Zhao Xiao felt a sharp pain in her lower abdomen. He curled up on the bed, his forehead covered with sweat. Seeing this, Yifan stepped forward and pressed the acupoints on Zhao Xiao's shoulders. The intense pain just now disappeared without a trace in an instant. Huh? Zhao Xiao was puzzled. Why is this happening? It's so magical. Talking about the disease, Yifan regained his previous seriousness. "I just temporarily sealed your acupuncture points to suppress the cold in your body. If you want to really get rid of the root cause of the disease, you need acupuncture and Chinese medicine to fully regulate your body." Now it was hard for Zhao Xiao not to believe it. He didn't care whether his sister's marriage was true or not, and even urged Yifan to go downstairs to get the needle. The sudden change made him look upset. After going downstairs, Yifan went straight to the point. "Mr. Zhao, do you have any silver needles at home?" Upon hearing this, both Mr. Zhao and Zhao Sai were stunned. They asked in unison, "What do you want the silver needle for?" Hearing this, Yifan smiled awkwardly. "I gave the second young lady an acupuncture injection. She said she was feeling a little uncomfortable." Zhao Simon quickly got up and searched for it, and actually found a pair that had been saved before. She held the silver needle in her hand and pretended to follow Yifan upstairs. "No need, Miss Zhao. Miss is fine. I'll be nervous if you go up there again." "You? Nervous?" Zhao Simon asked puzzledly. Before Yifan could explain, Mr. Zhao spoke up to stop him. "Simon, don't be rude. Since Mr. Yi said so, just do it." As a result, although Zhao Simon still had doubts, she didn't say anything more. After getting the silver needle, Yifan went directly into Zhao Xiao's boudoir. "Because I was in a hurry, I didn't even knock on the door. Who would have thought that I saw such an erotic scene?" "Zhao Xiao screamed, and quickly wrapped up her half-taken coat. "Why didn't you knock on the door?" Yifan's mouth twitched. He never thought she would be so impatient. Before I could tell him how much he had taken off his clothes, he started moving. "You don't have to take off so much. Just leave the clothes inside and lift them up." Zhao Xiao blushed to her ears when she heard this, and said proudly, "I know, I just wanted to see if you have any second thoughts." As his clothes were taken off one by one, Yifan was ready. He disinfected the tips of the silver needles with hot air, and then lined them up on the bed. "Lie down." Yifan picked up a silver needle and said, "Open your lower abdomen first." These command-like words made Zhao Xiao unable to refuse. She rolled up her clothes carefully, her cheeks blushing and turning away. "A little higher," Yifan said coldly. The flat belly was exposed, and a silver needle fell. The cold touch immediately made Zhao Xiao gasp, "Hey, doesn't it hurt?" Yifan rolled his eyes helplessly and said, "It's already been pierced. Do you think it hurts?" As he spoke, the second silver needle had already fallen. Only then did Zhao Xiao realize that the silver needle had already pierced into her body. In a few seconds, all 7 silver needles were in place. Taking a deep breath, Yifan withdrew his hand. The cold air is gradually being forced out of the body. You lie down by yourself first, I'll be back soon. After saying that, Yifan turned around, pushed the door open and left. Zhao Xia was left alone, puzzled. Where was the silver needle? Was he just going to leave it like that? Seeing Yifan coming down from upstairs, Zhao Simon hurried forward to ask. What happened to my sister? Why does she still need an injection? Since no one had seen what happened just now, Yifan naturally didn't need to hide it anymore. There are many ways for this chronic toxin to enter the human body, but one thing is certain is that it is man-made. Considering the poison in Mr. Zhao's body, this Zhao must have offended someone. The second young lady is fine, she just has a cold. By the way, has your Zhao family made any enemies recently? Chapter 20, Doubts. After hearing Yifan's words, Mr. Zhao and Zhao Simon tried their best to recall. After a while, they all shook their heads. Probably not. If they say they are enemies, it's probably about business. But since Grandpa got sick, Zhao's business has been put aside for the time being. This made Yifan a little puzzled, such a vicious poison and chronic toxin. If there wasn't a blood feud, who would kill someone like this? What's wrong, Mr. Yi? Do you suspect that my sister's illness is man-made? Mr. Zhao standing by had a solemn expression and was filled with doubt. Sighing softly, Yifan said helplessly, it's not doubt, it's certainty. This put Mr. Zhao and Zhao Simon in a difficult position. In their impression, there is no such thing at all. This body-chilling toxin is very similar to the poison in Mr. Zhao's body. If nothing unexpected happens, they should have been planted at the same time. Yifan said very seriously. Hearing this, Mr. Zhao had an idea. Due to his heavy academic workload, he and his second granddaughter rarely traveled together. The only time the three of them were not together was when Ponzi hosted a banquet. At the same time, could it be the work of the Shishan Pang family? Grandpa, are you talking about the Ponzi group dinner? Zhao Simon asked. As Mr. Zhao nodded in confirmation, she also recalled. Even if it happened a few months ago, I still have some impression of it. After all, under normal circumstances, the two sisters are inseparable. If you are accompanying your grandfather and have no one else to travel with you, the number of such people would be even smaller. I was busy with group affairs that time and didn't go with them, so I was the only one at home with nothing to do. After hearing this, Yifan had an idea in mind. The onset time of poison is different from that of cold poison, and poison can cause death in a short time. But the cold poison continued to torture him, and he died in agony after a long time. If he hadn't come to diagnose, it would have been difficult for an ordinary person to see the mystery. What's the background of this Ponzi group? Yifan asked puzzledly. The Ponzi group also operates in the medical field, but in a different field from the Zhao group. It's inevitable that there will be some friction in business. We are used to it. Zhao Simon answered seriously. Having said that, the popularity of medical care has been rising in recent years, so the pie has naturally become bigger. If the Ponzi group wants to expand, it has to get through our Zhao family. I guess this is the reason why they murdered Xiao and me. Old Master Zhao sighed helplessly, looking a little tired. Yifan was not surprised by this, as the business world is a war without the smoke of gunpowder. As for this Ponzi group, it is not located in Jinghai. He didn't understand and couldn't judge directly. By the way, I need to go to the medicine storehouse to get some herbs to make Chinese medicine for the second young lady. Yifan changed the subject. After all, this was Zhao's family affair and he shouldn't get involved too much. Hearing this, Zhao Simon handed the key to Yifan without hesitation. He also added, Mr. Yi, since you have repeatedly helped our Zhao family, the key to this medicine storehouse is now in your hands. You can come get it anytime you need it. I believe Grandpa thinks so too. Mr. Zhao waved his hand. He naturally had no objection to this. After all, Yifan was his savior, and he owed him this life. What's more, it's just a small storehouse of medicinal materials. However, he was more certain that his granddaughter liked this boy. Yifan thanked him, took a few herbs and went to boil the Chinese medicine. In the living room of the ancestral home, Zhao Simon's face was full of worry. Grandpa, when you attended the dinner with Xiao that day, did you notice anything unusual? Mr. Zhao thought for a moment and said, no, everything is normal. This kind of dinner was too common for the Zhao family. Who would pay attention to these things? However, this also made Zhao Simon feel troubled. After all, she was not at the scene that day. Now Grandpa can't explain it, let alone Xiao's carefree personality. Don't worry too much, Simon. I believe Mr. Yi will cure Xiao. He is our family's great benefactor, we must thank him very much. Grandpa said earnestly. I understand, Grandpa. Zhao Simon nodded in response. On Yifan's side, the Chinese medicine was boiled for more than 4 hours and was finally done. I put the medicine in a bowl and brought it upstairs. It was already getting dark. When I pushed the door open, I saw Zhao Xiao sleeping. Second miss, get up and take your medicine. Zhao Xiao woke up in shock and looked at Yifan with resentment on her face. You said you would come back soon, but it's already dark and there is no sign of you. Hey, you're just going to leave me alone. This needle has been stuck for so long. Don't worry, this is to expel the cold. Yifan said as he handed the medicine to Zhao Xiao. Didn't you notice that you don't wake up suddenly when you fall asleep this time, and your stomach doesn't hurt anymore? After hearing this, Zhao Xiao suddenly came to her senses. She hadn't had such a deep sleep in a long time, and she even had a dream. Really? Zhao Xiao was overjoyed. Don't tell me, please don't tell me. This time, looking at the black Chinese medicine that Yifan brought. Zhao Xiao gritted her teeth, stomped her feet, and swallowed it in one gulp. Despite the piercing bitterness, he didn't utter a single word. The cold had tormented her for so long that even the most unpleasant Chinese medicine no longer tasted so bitter. While Zhao Xiao was drinking the medicine, Yifan had already pulled out all the silver needles. 2 more acupuncture treatments will remove all the cold from your body. Okay, I'll listen to you. Zhao Xiao agreed obediently, no longer showing her previous arrogance. Noticing Yifan's strange look, she spoke in confusion. Why are you looking at me like that? If you weren't so arrogant, you'd be pretty cute. Yifan replied with a smile. He didn't notice Zhao Xiao's astonished eyes and blushing cheeks at all. But what Yifan said was absolutely true. Because there were some misunderstandings when we first met. Yifan didn't care much about this little girl. But if you look closely, you can find her big watery eyes. She has delicate facial features, a cherry mouth, a high nose bridge, and a cute bun, which makes her lovable. Compared with her sister Zhao Simon's charm, they are 2 different kinds of scenery. What nonsense are you talking about? I'm only 18 years old. This is called kidnapping, don't you understand? Zhao Xiao puffed up her cheeks and pinched her waist with both hands, saying angrily. But I didn't notice that the open neckline was about to show. Yifan pointed in front of him, I was just praising you casually, it shouldn't be that serious, right? Following the direction pointed, Zhao Xiao discovered that her nakedness was exposed. He picked up a pillow and threw it at him. You rascal! Leaving the room, Yifan sighed helplessly. He was just giving advice with good intentions, but was blamed instead. Seeing Yifan come out, Mr. Zhao and Zhao Simon finally breathed a sigh of relief. Mr. Yi, is my sister okay? The cold has been expelled, but the body still needs to be adjusted. Yifan replied. Okay, thank you, Brother Yi. Let's continue talking about your marriage with Simon. Hearing this, both of them were stunned. Come again. Chapter 21. No second thought. Mr. Zhao smiled slightly and said, No thank you gift, I'll just give you my granddaughter. Why, you're not happy? The connotation of these words can almost be said to be forcing the emperor to abdicate. Yifan saved people just following the teachings of the old man on the mountain. By the way, he did a favor to President Lin of the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce and got the Chenshan Snow Lotus. As for Zhao Simon, he had no ulterior motives. I'm sorry, Mr. Zhao, I'm afraid that won't work. Oh. Mr. Zhao was puzzled. I just heard from Simon that you are no longer engaged, right? Hearing this, Yifan nodded, confirming the fact. Then what are you worried about? Simon is a good girl. Mr. Zhao asked. This made Zhao Simon, who was standing by, a little embarrassed. What are you talking about, Grandpa? She did think Yifan was a good person, but not to this extent. She couldn't get married after just 2 meetings. You misunderstood Mr. Zhao. I didn't mean to say that Miss Zhao was not good. It's just that I have another engagement. I'm really sorry. Yifan thought back to the second marriage contract the old man had brought out. Although it had been torn into pieces by him, it could still be used as a shield. After hearing this, the Zhao grandfather and grandson had no choice but to give up. Well, since Mr. Yi has said so, an old man like me will not mention it anymore. After politely declining the dinner invitation, Yifan hastily left the Zhao family's ancestral home. While I was boiling Chinese medicine, President Lin of the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce called me. He was asked to come to the Chamber of Commerce in the evening to discuss important matters. Yifan and President Lin achieved mutual success by obtaining the Qianshan Snow Lotus this time. So he agreed and took a taxi to the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce. When he came downstairs, Yifan was attracted by the Chamber of Commerce building. The tall building soared into the sky, with a glass exterior and large characters of Wanmin Chamber of Commerce hanging on the top, looking very impressive. As soon as I entered the door, a woman dressed as a professional secretary came to greet me. "You must be Mr. Yi. President Lin has been waiting for you for a long time." Following the instructions, Yifan entered the elevator and went all the way to the top floor. "The president's office is here." The secretary pointed to the side and then stepped out. The entire top floor consists of a large conference room and the president's office. Yifan knocked on the door and entered, only to find that all the items were complete. Even a round of golf on the rooftop. Seeing that the person coming was Yifan, President Lin hurried forward. "Mr. Yi, thank you so much for curing Mr. Zhao's illness this time. Brother Zhao and I have been friends for many years, and luckily I was able to help." President Lin was frank and humble. "You're welcome," Yifan responded. The two exchanged a few pleasantries and then sat down in the office of over 1,000 square meters. The luxurious decorations are so extravagant that any single piece of it costs millions. The wealth of this office alone is immeasurable. What's more, it is the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce which has many listed companies under its umbrella. "Mr. Yi, I won't keep you in suspense. I have something else I want to ask you for help with," President Lin said in a flattering tone while pouring tea. He was one of the few people who knew Yifan's strength well, so naturally he did not dare to neglect him. "You know my rules," Yifan said coldly. Hearing this, President Lin quickly stood up and placed the things he had prepared on the table. "Mr. Yi, I will pay more attention to your medicinal materials. Please take a look at these first." President Lin opened the file. Yifan glanced at it casually and was slightly shocked. He actually directly gave Qinzi Kaiyonglu 51% of the shares. The most luxurious banquet venue in Jinghai. The market value is nearly 30 billion, and even Yifan, who regards money as dirt, finds it difficult not to care. Such a big deal, it seems that what President Lin asked me to do is not simple. Mr. Yi is really wise. It may be difficult for me, but it will be a piece of cake for you. President Lin flattered. "Tell me about it," Yifan asked doubtfully. Chairman Lin unfolded a map and pointed to the location of West Mountain. "It's like this, Mr. Yi. The medical industry has been very hot recently, so our Wanmin Chamber of Commerce wants to enter Shishan and get a piece of the pie. If we want to enter the Shishan medical industry, the Ponzi Group is our biggest obstacle," President Lin said, looking a little tired. "Ponzi Group?" Yifan became interested when he heard the name. "Isn't this the group that Zhao suspected? What is the origin of the Ponzi Group?" Yifan asked. "It is considered a medical giant in Shishan. Although it cannot compare with Jinghai, the strong dragon cannot defeat the local snake," Lin Hui replied. "What a coincidence." Yifan also wanted to see where this Ponzi scheme came from. After all, Mr. Zhao has been engaged in medical practice all his life, so he should be able to find the medicinal materials he needs. Now that President Lin said so, he didn't mind doing a favor. "What do you want me to do?" Yifan asked. "The Ponzi Group is a semi-gang in Shishan, with many thugs. We dare not advance rashly, but it will be much easier if we have the help of Mr. Yi," President Lin replied with a smile. Yifan thought about it and readily agreed to President Lin's request. Both Mr. Zhao and President Lin are capable assistants in finding medicinal materials. The goal is the same, and I can also take the Qinzi Kaiyonglu into my pocket at the same time, so why not do it? In that case, I will arrange Mr. Yi to the position of general manager, so that he can have a better title. Whatever. Just let me know when the time comes for negotiations. Yifan waved his hand casually. "I heard that Mr. Yi still has no place to live. I have an empty house in the hillside villa. I'll give it to Mr. Yi. Thank you for agreeing to my request," President Lin said, handing over the key with both hands. After understanding President Lin's request, Yifan said goodbye. I went straight to the villa halfway up the mountain, planning to rest for a night. The next morning, Yifan was awakened by an urgent ringing of the phone. Yifan, do you remember what day it is today? A familiar voice sounded. It was Su Ningshuang calling. This made Yifan a little surprised, but more confused. What day? Yifan asked. There was a sigh from the other end of the line. It's my birthday. Hearing this, Yifan was a little confused. We've already called off the engagement, so why should I tell him about my birthday? You are like a weasel paying New Year's greetings to a chicken. Tell me what's going on. Yifan asked doubtfully. Ignorant bastard. Have you forgotten that I saved you the day before yesterday? If Yang Jian hadn't begged you, do you think you could have escaped retaliation so easily? Su Ningshuang was extremely angry. She originally thought that Yifan was really that strong. It turned out that Yang Jian helped her out of her kindness. He called you by name this time, so you have no reason to refuse. Yifan was puzzled as he challenged 200 thugs alone. He fought his way out. But when it came to Su Ningshuang, it became Yang Jian's credit. Bullshit, it has nothing to do with him. Chapter 22, Swelling Face. On the other end of the phone, Su Ningshuang's face was full of displeasure. Before, she didn't think Yifan would be the kind of person who would brag about being rich. If Yang Jian hadn't told her, she wouldn't have known what the whole story was. Don't be so stubborn, Yifan. I already know everything. It was only because Yang Jian sent people to rescue you that night that you were lucky enough to escape. Su Ningshuang said coldly. Yifan's face was filled with black lines. What on earth was Yang Jian talking about? Did Yang Jian tell you? Yifan asked in confusion. He said that he saw me leaving the company late at night and followed me because he was worried about me. He happened to see you being surrounded, so he told his father to send someone to rescue you. Su Ningshuang believed it without a doubt. She knew very well that Yang Jian was not a very good person, but he was really nice to her. She would rather humble herself and save her ex-fiancé. What else can she say? Are you okay? Yifan's mouth twitched. Just based on his father's servile attitude towards Neo Chong, do you really think that overseas capital can save me? Stop denying it. I don't ask for your thanks, but at least don't add insult to injury. Su Ningshuang said angrily. Okay, I'll go to the birthday party. I want to see what kind of magic potion Yang Jian has poured into you. Yifan said. This Yang Jian dares to take all the credit. He is really bold. At night, the Qianzi Tower. Su Ningshuang's birthday party was booked in the largest private room. In addition to the 3 people from the Su family, there are also Yang Jian and his father Yang Yao. Thank you, brother-in-law and Uncle Yang, for coming to my sister's birthday party. I'll have one first. Su Zhe said this, picking up the wine glass and drinking it all. Li Yanfang beside her smiled. Well, today our family is together. We also want to thank Xiao Yang for booking such a large private room for us. You are worthy of being the Yang family. Hearing this, Yang Jian waved his hands repeatedly. You're welcome, auntie, we are all family. Although he didn't say it, he was very happy in his heart. Li Yanfang said so, but she still spent a lot of money to book the largest private room. Mother-in-law, the more I look at these 2 children, the more they seem to be a perfect match. Yang Yao said with a smile. Of course not. They are a perfect match made in heaven. Li Yanfan replied. Su Ningshuang was happy from the bottom of her heart when she saw her brother and mother. Everyone, come and eat. There will be cake later. Don't be anxious, Ningshuang, you forgot that everyone is not here yet. Yang Jian said playfully. Li Yanfan and Su Zhe were both stunned when they heard this. Everyone is not here? Aren't all of us here? No, isn't Yifan here yet? Yang Jian said with a wicked smile. Yifan? Why are you mentioning that piece of trash? He is no longer a member of our Su family. Li Yanfan was slightly displeased. That's right, the last time you beat me up, I'm still not done with it. Su Zhe was not willing to be outdone. Hearing this, Su Ningshuang sighed helplessly. His brother and mother had a deep misunderstanding of Yifan. Don't be like that, Mom. Yifan came here today to thank Yang Jian for his help. Thank you. Li Yanfan asked puzzledly. Yang Jian hurriedly explained, not forgetting to add fuel to the fire. After being fooled, Li Yanfang and Su Zhe felt that they had not made a mistake in choosing the right person. He's definitely my son-in-law. So generous. Li Yanfan did not hesitate to praise him. This was in stark contrast to his attitude towards Yifan. Su Zhe did not forget to flatter him. He was hoping that his brother-in-law would help him in the future. Brother-in-law, if you ask me, you are just too kind. Why do you care about that loser? Yang Jian waved his hand. He is Ningshuang's ex-fiancé after all, it's just a small favor. At this time, Yang Yao did not forget to brag about his son. Xiao Jian is just like that. Even though he is not serious at ordinary times, he is too soft-hearted at critical moments. What a nice Wang Po selling melons, bragging about herself. If you don't know, you would really think Yang Jian is a good person. You don't know, that day a large group of thugs surrounded an entire street. Fortunately, our overseas capital is strong enough. We sent 200 bodyguards to fight back Neo Er's group. Yang Jian was halfway through his speech when the door of the private room was suddenly pushed open. The words were on the tip of his tongue, but he swallowed them back. Fight it off, and then, keep talking. Yifan's eyes were cold and his face was full of displeasure. I've seen people bragging, but I've never seen anyone bragging like this. Ahem. Yang Jian coughed to cover up his embarrassment and pointed to a seat next to him. Since you're here, take a seat. Seeing his behavior, Yifan just sneered and sat aside. He wanted to see what this kid was up to. Everyone is here, let's eat. Yang Jian looked like the master of the house. By the way, I heard that Tianzi Kaianlu has a lot of fine wines. Aunt Xiaozhe, please order whatever you want to drink. As he spoke, Yang Jian waved his hand and called the waiter outside the door in. Put down the wine and beverage menu, the cheapest one costs 30,000 yuan. I'm so sorry, Xiaozhe. Booking the private room is already enough to cost you a lot of money. Li Yanfan smiled. Just order whatever you want, brother-in-law? Then I won't be polite. Su Zhe opened the menu and looked at it carefully. Several people were talking and laughing, and simply ignored Yifan. After looking for a long time, Su Zhe directly picked a bottle of top-quality Lafite from 1982. It was worth more than 200,000 yuan, and it hurt Yang Jian. Okay, Xiaozhe, drink if you want. Waiter, bring me a bottle of 1982 Lafite. But once you start installing this, you have to finish it. Su Ningshuang wanted to stop it, but it was too late. She already owed Yang Jian a favor, and she didn't want to owe him any more. In contrast, Li Yanfan and Su Zhe repeatedly praised the Yang father and son for their wealth. It's better to be cautious when choosing a son-in-law. Look at Xiao Jian and then look at Yifan. You won't know until you compare. Li Yanfan said sarcastically. The last time Su Zhe was beaten, the old lady was very angry. Now that I have finally found the opportunity, I naturally want to take revenge. You're so right, Mom. Brother-in-law Yang is the best. He spends money on my sister without any hesitation. Su Zhe continued. Looking at this snobbish family, Yifan just found it ridiculous. If you help count money after being cheated, you must have some mental problems to do this. Mom, Xiaozhe, you two should stop talking. Su Ningshuang said this while looking in Yifan's direction. She knew all too well what had happened before. As soon as he finished speaking, the door of the private room was opened again. The waiter was holding a bottle of wine in his hand and spoke to everyone with a smile. Hello, this is a bottle of Italian red wine worth 800,000 yuan sent by our boss. Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. No one knows the owner of Tianzi Kaianlu. Who is your boss giving it to? Yang Jian asked. Before the waiter could speak again, Yang Yao cleared his throat and said, Okay, got it. Thank Lao Han for me. Several people looked at Yang Yao in unison, filled with envy. Uncle Yang also knows the boss here. Su Zhe asked in surprise. Chapter 23, Helpless Leaving. Yang Yao did have some impression of a shareholder of Tianzi Kaianlu. We had some business dealings, but that was a long time ago. Just a business partner, just a small shareholder, no need to be surprised. Even though Yang Yao said this, it was enough to make the mother and son of the Su family sigh. You should know that Tianzi Kaianlu is the largest banquet venue in Jinghai. With a market value of hundreds of billions, it is beyond the reach of even small shareholders. Uncle Yang is so awesome. This red wine is twice as expensive as the Lafite I just ordered. Su Zhe said flatteringly. It's okay, just drink as much as you want. Yarn Yao looked nonchalant. But I was worried about why Lao Han brought the wine over. Seeing this, the waiter twitched his mouth, put down their wine and left reluctantly. Although it was indeed sent by Boss Han, it was given to a Mr. Yi. Uncle Yang, since you are the boss of Qinzi Kaianlu, can you arrange for me to come in and be the general manager or something? Su Zhe asked seriously. Although it's a bit difficult, since Shezhe has asked, I'll keep an eye on it for you. Yarn Yao seemed a little embarrassed. That's great, Shezhe, quickly thank you Uncle Yang. Li Yanfen immediately smiled happily. She had been worried about her son's job for a long time, and finally he had found one. Thank you, Uncle Yang. By the way, when will Uncle Yang take us to meet Boss Han? Su Zhe asked. Well, maybe next time. He's very busy. Yarn Yao smiled awkwardly. Halfway through his words, he heard a sudden voice coming from outside the door. Who said I was busy? A middle-aged man with a big belly and dressed in casual clothes pushed the door open with a cold expression. He looked around and put on a flattering smile the moment he saw Yi Fan. He trotted over and said, Boss Yi, you didn't even tell me you were coming. Everyone present was stunned. Boss Han is the boss of Qinzi Kaianlu, why is he so humble to Yi Fan? Boss Han, you've got the wrong person. Uncle Yang is here. Su Zhe asked in confusion. Hearing this, Boss Han glanced in Yarn Yao's direction with disdain. What Uncle Yang? I don't know him. You've got the wrong Boss Han. He's just a loser who just came down from the mountains. He's not Mr. Yi at all. Su Zhe said unwillingly. Yes, Boss Han, you are looking for Mr. Yarn Yao Yan, right? Li Yanfen agreed. Yang Jian sneered at the scene in front of him. Boss Han, you just sent wine to my dad, and you don't recognize him. Several people were talking at the same time, and Boss Han was completely confused. Why doesn't he remember knowing Yarn Yao? Seeing this, Yarn Yao plucked up his courage, stepped forward, took out his business card and said respectfully. Boss Han, I'm Yarn Yao, the chairman of Overseas Capital. Have you forgotten? Boss Han picked up the business card, looked it up and down, then waved his hand contemptuously. Yarn Yao? I don't know him. I'm here to see Mr. Yi. The wine is also for Mr. Yi. Why are all these random people trying to make trouble for him? As he spoke, Boss Han half knelt on the ground and flattered Yi Fan who was sitting. How is it, Mr. Yi? I am managing Qinzi Kaianlu pretty well, right? Yi Fan nodded casually, quite satisfied. Yesterday, President Lin just gave 51% of Qinzi Kaianlu's shares to Yi Fan. The entire Qinzi Kaianlu received the news early in the morning that the boss had been replaced. Boss Han remembered the photo at that time, but who knew he would see it so soon? I thought it was an investigation job, so I gave him wine and entertained him well, for fear of upsetting the new boss. As long as Mr. Yi is satisfied, I will withdraw first. Boss Han said with a smile. Go get busy. Yi Fan waved his hand. When Boss Han left, everyone felt so awkward. I thought I was giving face to Yarn Yao, but who knew that he didn't even know him? Su Ningshuang was puzzled. Why didn't she know that Yi Fan had a relationship with Qinzi Kaianlu before? Yi Fan, why was Boss Han so humble to you just now? I just became the largest shareholder here yesterday. Shouldn't he be humble to me? Yi Fan said lightly. The Yang family father and son looked at each other, unable to believe their ears. Oh, I think they found an actor. Yang Jian said stiffly. The Boss Han just now is indeed the boss of Qinzi Kaianlu, but so what? He would never believe that Yi Fan, a loser, could be the largest shareholder here. That's right, who knows whether the Boss Han just now was real or fake? Su Zhe quickly agreed. He had seen how miserable Yi Fan was when he just came down the mountain, without even a place to live. Now that he's the boss, he doesn't believe it at all. You're right, Yi Fan, stop pretending. Li Yanfen said unhappily. Don't be like that, Yi Fan. There's no need to pretend to be rich. Even if you find someone to act, we won't believe it. Su Ningshuang said disappointedly, and her impression of Yi Fan was further lowered. She had always believed that Yi Fan was a very honest person and would never lie for the sake of face. But now he has tried to deceive again and again. Acting? You think I'm acting? Yi Fan couldn't believe it. No matter what others said, Su Ningshuang's distrust made him feel most tired. After so many years of living together, don't we even have this little bit of trust? If it's not acting, then what is it? Can you really become the boss of Qinzi Kaiyanglu? Su Ningshuang was helpless. It's just a Qinzi Kaiyanglu, why not? Yifan asked coldly. You disappoint me so much. Su Ningshuang was speechless. She couldn't believe why Yifan had become like this step by step since he came down the mountain. The guilt she felt for breaking off the engagement was slowly disappearing. Yifan, oh Yifan, I didn't expect you to thank me for saving you, but now you are playing this trick on me. Yang Jian was still harboring evil intentions. Even if he is really the boss of Qinzi Kaiyanglu, no one will believe it. Hearing this, Yifan's eyes suddenly turned cold. You saved me? Just based on overseas capital and your father's humble attitude towards Neo Chong. What nonsense are you talking about? Yang Jian suddenly felt guilty. Young man, I advise you not to speak nonsense. Yang Yao was slightly displeased. Yifan snorted coldly. Originally, he didn't want to get entangled with this father and son. Who knew that they were so shameless beyond imagination? You said you saved me, so tell me, how did Neo die suddenly? Hearing this, Yang Jian subconsciously took a step back. I sent someone there, how would I know? Well, it looks like he was shot in the vitals. Yang Jian did go there that night, but he ran away when he saw the large group of thugs. Not to mention sending anyone over, just one look was enough to scare him so much that he didn't even dare go home that night. He guessed that Yifan must have relied on some dishonorable means to come back alive. Hearing this, Yifan raised the corner of his mouth with a hint of amusement. He stared at Yang Jian and spoke word by word. I punch him in the head. Chapter 24 It's impossible. Hearing Yifan's words, everyone present opened their mouths in disbelief. He was stunned for a long time, but couldn't utter a single word. The scene of blood splattering everywhere is nauseating just by imagining it. Don't talk nonsense about Yifan, it's impossible. Yang Jian said stubbornly. That's right, I don't believe it either. Su Zhe agreed. The two men were harsh in words, but they were still afraid in their hearts. They had all seen Yifan's strength, which was outrageously strong. Stop bragging, Yifan, you know very well what kind of person you are. Li Yanfan said. Really? Why do you think so? Yifan replied coldly. Hearing this, Su Ningshuang's expression showed a little displeasure. Shut up Yifan, how can you talk to mom like that? Remember, we have already called off the engagement. Yifan reminded. The atmosphere in the private room instantly dropped to freezing point. Yang Jian's shameless provocation made Yifan, who had been patient for a long time, a little angry. If Su Ningshuang hadn't been here, he would have also made Yang Jian's head explode. Is it Mr. Yi? Just as several people were confronting each other, a woman outside the private room raised a question. Looking in the direction of the sound, everyone was shocked. Wu Tong? General Manager of the Real Estate Industry of Wanmin Chamber of Commerce. Yang Yao said subconsciously. Who is she? Is she very powerful, Uncle Yang? Su Zhe asked puzzledly. Wanmin Chamber of Commerce. Su Ningshuang was slightly stunned when she heard the name. Whether it is the Su family or overseas capital, they are nothing compared to the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce. Yang Yao took the opportunity to step forward and took out his business card to show his goodwill. Hello, Mr. Wu, I am Yang Yao, the Director of Overseas Capital, nice to meet you. After hesitating for a long time, Su Ningshuang followed closely. The purpose of getting to know overseas capital is to obtain these rare opportunities. Hello, Mr. Wu, I am Su Ningshuang, the Director of Su Group. Seeing this, Wu Tong smiled and took the two people's business cards. He extended his hand and looked very friendly. I am Wu Tong, the General Manager of Real Estate at the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce. Yang Yao didn't want to miss this opportunity and wanted to make himself familiar to the big boss. I simply went back to the private room and handed over the bottle of red wine. Mr. Wu, this is Italian red wine, worth 800,000 yuan. It's a meeting gift. Looking at the bottle of red wine, Wu Tong was a little surprised. When I met boss and just now, he told me that the wine had been given away. Where did you get this wine from? Well, of course I bought it. It's not expensive. Yang Yao said with a stiff face. He didn't notice Wu Tong's gaze at all and gradually became colder. This is her favorite wine, and she always asks Boss Han to keep it for her. How could the important person who could make boss and bypass her to send someone away be Yarn Yao in front of her? Did you buy it? Boss and just said he gave it away. And this is what I reserved. Do you think you are qualified to give it away without my consent? Wu Tong sneered. Upon hearing this, Yarn Yao felt a chill down his spine. If they offend Wu Tong, their overseas capital will come to an end. Looking around, he glanced at Yifan who was sitting next to him and came to a conclusion. It was quite a good show just now, what a gift. Does Yifan have the qualifications? Even if he is really the boss of Qinzi Kaianglu, he can't afford to offend Wu Tong. It's him, Mr. Wu, who brought the wine into our private room. Yarn Yao was desperate and tried every possible means to help. Seeing this, Yan Jian quickly agreed, yes, that's right. A big shot who even his father has to flatter must be no simple person. The Su mother and son stood behind him, their eyes rolled, and they added fuel to the fire, not wanting to be outdone. Uncle Yang is right. He was the one who brought the wine in without permission. Su Zhe affirmed. Yes, little girl, you can't wrongly accuse a good person. This concerted effort almost made Wu Tong doubt himself. This morning, the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce was reshuffled and a new general manager took office. The photos have been circulated everywhere, and that handsome face is unforgettable at first sight. He and Yifan are exactly the same. Mr. Wu, please don't misunderstand. Yarn Yao was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. They were afraid that Wu Tong would be unhappy and ban overseas capital. The child is ignorant, please don't bear grudges. Li Yanfan also pleaded again and again. I'm sorry, Mr. Wu, there must be a misunderstanding. Su Ningshuang sighed. At this moment, her heart was in great torment and she was extremely disappointed. She didn't even have the heart to speak up to defend Yifan. Mr. Wu, how about I pay for this bottle of wine and give it to you? Yarn Yao suddenly spoke. In order to please Wu Tong, a mere 800,000 yuan is nothing. 800,000. Uncle Yang, you are so generous. Su Zhe was shocked. This is a full 800,000 yuan for a bottle of wine. Are you serious, relative? Li Yanfan's face was full of disbelief. Even though the Su family's assets amount to billions, they still spend 800,000 on a bottle of wine. Who else can say with disdain that it doesn't matter? Yan Jian was also stunned. How powerful is this woman? I can actually make my dad do this. No need, I don't think this is a misunderstanding at all. Wu Tong said coldly. Hearing this, everyone took a deep breath. If this doesn't calm Mr. Wu down, they are helpless. Li Yanfan was furious. Just when the in-laws and daughter were about to curry favor with an important figure, Yifan, a loser, muddied the waters. Yifan! Kneel down and apologize to Mr. Wu immediately. Look at what you have done. As soon as the word Yifan came out of his mouth, Wu Tong's eyes lit up instantly. What she said just now was not a misunderstanding, she just wanted to confirm whether the person sitting there was Yifan. Now when he heard Li Yanfan calling Mr. Yi's name, he was immediately surprised. Boss Yi, it really is you. Wu Tong said with a smile, passing everyone and walking towards Yifan. This time, everyone was completely dumbfounded. If Boss Han was acting just now, then Wu Tong couldn't act with Yifan anymore. Yifan looked the visitor up and down and spoke calmly. Wu Tong? Never heard of him. Yarn Yao's jaw dropped in shock. Everyone in Jinghai knew about this. He is the general manager of real estate of Wanmin Chamber of Commerce. Many buildings in Jinghai were designed by the Chamber of Commerce. And Wu Tong is the person in charge of that department, a top official. Just when everyone thought Yifan was dead. When Wu Tong heard this, he was not angry, but spoke respectfully. It's normal that you haven't heard of me. I'm the head of real estate and I'm not often at the headquarters. As he spoke, Wu Tong handed over his business card with both hands. Yifan then remembered, if he remembered correctly. This woman seems to have some relationship with President Lin, and seems to be a relative. No need to be so polite. Yifan said. Wu Tong's attitude towards Yifan was basically that of a subordinate and a superior. The worldview of several people present was about to collapse. Even if I saw this scene with my own eyes, I would still feel like I was in a dream. Yifan is just a poor boy who just came down from the mountains. Why did he become the one they needed to look up to overnight? Chapter 25, Change of Attitude. Wu Tong stood up and looked at Yarn Yao and the others with an unhappy expression. Boss Yi, how do we deal with these people? Seeing this, Yarn Yao was so frightened that he dared not even breathe. Not to mention Su Zhe and that snob Li Yanfen, who had already hidden behind. Seeing that Yifan didn't say anything, Su Ningshuang had no choice but to plead for mercy. Yifan, we were engaged after all. Uncle Yang and his friends have mistaken me for someone else this time. Please don't take it personally. Hearing Su Ningshuang's understatement, Yifan suddenly turned cold. Really? When they kept calling me a stinky loser, could it be that they were mistaking me for someone else? This can't be entirely blamed on Uncle Yang and the others. After all, you have changed so much. Su Ningshuang sighed lightly. What does my change have to do with you? Yifan said coldly. He never thought that Su Ningshuang would still be pleading for the Yang father and son at this point. It is just a small overseas capital, like an ant in his eyes. Seeing this, Yarn Yao bravely said, Boss Wu, we wronged Yifan today. We apologize. Hearing this, Wu Tong's expression became serious, and he took a step back to stand behind Yifan. No, you should apologize to Mr. Yi. Everyone's heart was in their throat. Who on earth is this Yifan that made Mr. Wu do such a thing? Things are much more complicated than they imagined. Excuse me, who is Mr. Yi? Yang Jian asked puzzledly. Who is it? Do you think a small medical group with overseas capital is worthy of knowing? Wu Tong looked at him coldly. At this time, the shrew Li Yanfen suddenly spoke. If we want to apologize, we should also know to whom we are apologizing. You are not worthy of knowing Mr. Yi's identity. I advise you to take care of yourselves. Wu Tong still did not speak. She knew very well that Yifan would not reveal his identity even when they were having a meal together. If she said it now, it would be considered as inconsiderate. In that case, we refuse to apologize. Yang Jian spoke without hesitation. Mr. Wu, we respect you very much, but it is impossible for us to apologize to him. Yang Yao followed closely. Overseas capital, I think you have lost your mind. Wu Tong said viciously. He then took out his cell phone, dialed the number, and muttered a few words to the other end. Even though Yang Yao was scared to death, he still spoke. Boss Wu, although our company is not big, it has nothing to do with the real estate industry. We will give you some face. Why should we protect Yifan? That's right, Mr. Wu. We have nothing in common. Yang Jian quickly agreed. Wu Tong looked at the people whose eyes were hopelessly damaged and took a deep breath. I have already given you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. Then he said to Yifan respectfully, Boss Yi, how about giving overseas capital a taste of their own medicine? Whatever you want, as long as you are happy. Yifan waved his hand. In his opinion, it was not his turn to invest in such a small overseas capital. As for Su Ningshuang, who refused to repent, he was helpless. Okay, Mr. Yi. Wu Tong said. With Yifan's permission, Wu Tong went on a killing spree. He said coldly to the other end of the phone, cut off all transactions between overseas capital and the companies under the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce. As soon as these words were spoken, there was an uproar at the scene. Yarn Yao's forehead was covered with sweat. Boss Wu, is it necessary to do this so drastically? Many large overseas capital orders have dealings with the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce. After all, the other party has many subsidiaries, and once all of them are cut off, it will inevitably affect the capital chain. If this happens, the consequences will be disastrous. I said, I gave you a chance. Wu Tong said coldly. What do you mean, Su Zhe, is the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce so powerful? Li Yanfen was panicked. Yes. Uncle Yang is going to bleed now. Su Zhe said nervously. What should we do, Dad? It shouldn't be a big deal, right? Yang Jian asked. Yang Yao couldn't help shivering all over. Mr. Wu. Mr. Wu, no, Mr. Yi, I was blind and didn't recognize the great man. Suddenly, several people looked at Yarn Yao. Yarn Yao, who had been stubborn just now completely lost his arrogance. Give overseas capital a way out. Mr. Yi, I apologize to you. I'm sorry. Uncle Yang, what are you doing? She just made a phone call. Su Zhe said hurriedly. That's right, dear relative, everything is fine now. Do you really want to apologize to Yifan? Li Yanfen was unwilling to give up. Now, no matter how the Su family mother and son fan the flames. Yarn Yao couldn't hear anything anymore. He still knows clearly which is more important, face or the group. What did you say? I didn't hear you clearly. Yifan said expressionlessly. I'm sorry, Mr. Yi. It's my fault for offending you. Yarn Yao's voice suddenly rose. This made the people who had been so arrogant just now dumbfounded. It was just a phone call, why would Yarn Yao go to such lengths? It's no use apologizing to me. I wasn't the one who called. Yifan said with a playful smile on his face. Since he wanted to play, he didn't mind playing for a while longer. Yarn Yao looked left and right and suddenly had no idea. It was obvious that the two people in front of him were teasing him, but he had no way to stop them. Mr. Yi, Mr. Wu, please forgive me this time. I promise that I will never appear in front of you again. Yarn Yao felt hopeless. No matter how he apologized, Yifan and Wutong remained unmoved. Behind her, Li Yanfan's shrewish temper also flared up. Yifan! That's enough. It's disgraceful to ask Xiao Yang to apologize to you. That's right, it's good enough, why are you pretending? Su Zhe was not willing to be outdone. As a result, even Su Ningshuang couldn't bear it anymore. Yifan, forget it. Uncle Yang has already apologized to you. It doesn't matter what others say, except Su Ningshuang. She knows herself well enough not to bother with these people. What kind of magic potion did Yang Jian give you? Su Ningshuang paused, not knowing how to respond for a moment. Overseas capital is currently the biggest help to Su's listing and is also the most powerful source she can access. Once the relationship with Yang Jian completely falls out, the listing will be a long way off. It's not what you think, Yifan. No matter what, since you've apologized, let it go. I can let it go, but the actions of the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce cannot be stopped. You'll find a way, right? No, not at all. Overseas capital is reshuffled tonight. Yifan said coldly. Yarn Yao took a deep breath and fell to his knees with a thud. He knew very well that the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce had the strength to do so. It only takes a few hours, no, just a few minutes to turn overseas capital into a shell. Boss Yi, please give me a chance. The same was true for Yarn Yao, and Yang Jian finally realized what kind of person was in front of him. Yifan, no, Mr. Yi, I'm sorry, you should come to me for everything, it's all my fault. As he said this, Yang Jian seemed to have thought of something. Yes, I didn't save you, I lied. Chapter 26, Hard-Mouthed. Yang Jian, who was just bragging about how he stepped forward and saved Yifan. At this moment, he was like a lost dog and admitted the lie himself. The three members of the Su family who had believed in him were all shocked. What did you say? It wasn't you at all that night. Su Ningshuang said in disbelief. Brother-in-law, don't give up the credit just to apologize. Su Zhe refused to give up. Xiao Jian, what do you mean? Li Yanfan said. Helpless, Yang Jian flatly denied it. His father has already knelt down, so why is he still stubborn? Yes, I really followed Ningshuang that night, but I didn't take any action at all. Several people were disheartened, no wonder Yang Jian never mentioned the matter. If he was really the one who saved him, Yifan wouldn't be so difficult at this moment. Mr. Yi, please give me a chance. Yang Jian said helplessly. Before he could finish his words, Yarn Yao's cell phone rang like a death horn. He took it out with trembling hands, and his heart sank when he saw the call from his secretary. After thinking it over again and again, I decided to pick up the phone. Chairman, this is bad. Wanmin Chamber of Commerce has announced that it will cancel all orders with us. The news spread too quickly. We had no time to react. The estimated loss is nearly 10 billion. The secretary was impatient. Before Yarn Yao could speak, the secretary continued. Not only that, due to the negative public opinion, other companies are also showing signs of terminating contracts. If the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce is hit hard, then the other companies will be defeated. He couldn't imagine that overnight, overseas capital would go from a group with a market value of over 10 billion. It has completely become a shell that is close to bankruptcy. Mr. Yi, please give me a chance. I can't lose overseas capital. Yarn Yao shouted in despair. What's wrong with you, Dad? Who called just now? Yang Jian looked confused. It's too late to give up until you see the Yellow River. Wutong said viciously. The Wanmin Chamber of Commerce just announced its new general manager yesterday. She was just worrying about how to curry favor with them, but then the father and son of the Yang family came to her door. No, no. Mr. Wu, don't forget the name of our group, Overseas Capital. We still have overseas orders. Don't think of letting us die like this. Yarn Yao was at the end of his strength. Wu Tong snorted coldly, really. Just as he finished speaking, the life-threatening bell rang again. Yarn Yao no longer dared to look or listen. Seeing this, Yarn Jian grabbed the phone and answered it. The secretary's anxious voice came from the other end. Oh no, Chairman. Many companies have sent me termination letters. Hearing this, Yarn Jian was stunned. No, this is not true, it must be a lie. He hung up the phone, and then the phone rang again. When the call was connected again, a familiar voice came through. Director Yarn, we need an explanation. What on earth happened? That voice came from the head of the largest overseas partner of Overseas Capital. Once Overseas Capital completely loses the support of mainland groups, the monkeys will scatter like monkeys when the tree falls. It's not Mr. Wang, it's just a small accident. Yarn Jian said quickly. Really? Then let's suspend our cooperation until you resolve this accident. There was a cold voice on the other end of the phone. Yarn Jian fell to the ground with a thud as if his soul had been sucked out of him. Su Zhe hurried forward to help. What's wrong, brother-in-law, what happened? It's over, it's all over. Yarn Jian said sadly. In just a few minutes, Overseas Capital was completely turned into a shell. Seeing Yarn Jiancheng like this, Yarn Yao also guessed the reason. Once overseas partners stop cooperating, they will declare bankruptcy in less than a day. All medical treatments will inevitably pile up and become a pile of scrap metal. Even if we sell at a low price, we can't save Overseas Capital. Mr. Yi, how can you forgive us? We were also blinded by the villain. Yarn Yao knelt down and stepped forward. He knew very well that only Yi Fan's forgiveness could save him now. Don't think about it, Mr. Yarn. Overseas Capital is already at the end of its strength. There's no hope. Wu Tong said coldly. No. No, there must be a way. Yarn Yao trembled all over. Li Yanfen, who didn't understand what was going on, looked at them and couldn't help but complain. My dear, look at you like this, you are really scared. She is an old woman and doesn't understand these business rules at all. In her eyes, the Su family is now strong enough. As for Overseas Capital, it is nothing more than cooperation and leveraging. Seeing the woman's disdainful look, Yarn Yao, who was already desperate, suddenly became furious. Get out. What do you know, old woman? It's all your fault. If you hadn't been fanning the flames, things wouldn't have come to this. Yarn Yao went completely crazy. Hearing this, Li Yanfen also got angry. Hey, what nonsense are you talking about? You are afraid of Yi Fan, but we at the Su family are not. Uncle Yarn, you are wrong for saying that. How can you talk to my mother like that? Su Zhe was not willing to be outdone. He was a snob to begin with. Look at how Yarn Yao is kneeling on the ground now. Su Zhe didn't care about anything else. He just stood with his mother first. Seeing this, Su Ningshuang knew that there was no hope for the situation. Yi Fan, give Overseas Capital a chance to survive. Why do you keep pleading for this father and son? However, Wu Tong was halfway through his words when Yi Fan waved his hand and interrupted him. Although the engagement was called off, the years of love were not fake. This time he was only targeting the arrogant young father and son, and had nothing to do with the Su family. Don't say any more, Mr. Wu. It's meaningless. Yi Fan said. Yi Fan, if you still care about our old friendship, give Overseas Capital a chance to survive. Su Ningshuang spoke again. You have turned into Ningshuang. Yi Fan said coldly. Even at this point, Su Ningshuang is still thinking about the Su group. But she didn't realize that the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce had a huge influence in Jinghai. Even if 10 more overseas capitals came, they could not save the Yang family father and son. Do we still have feelings for each other? You were the one who broke off the engagement, and you were also the one who didn't trust me. Now you ask me to think about our old feelings. Yi Fan said coldly. Su Ningshuang knew that she had let Yi Fan down time and again, but there was nothing she could do. Without waiting to say anything else, Yarn Yao rushed towards Li Yanfen like crazy. Old woman, I advise you not to be so arrogant. A lean camel is bigger than a horse. Bar. Look at you. Li Yanfen followed closely behind. At this moment, Yarn Yao completely lost his patience. Go to hell, if it weren't for the pressure from Zhao, do you think we would be willing? Zhao family? What Zhao family? Su Ningshuang was puzzled. You don't really think that our Yang family will marry no one but you, do you? Yarn Yao's mouth twitched. Hearing this, Yarn Jian was also a little confused. What are you talking about, Dad? At this point Yarn Yao has lost everything, he doesn't mind losing some more. It was the Zhao family who asked me to publicly announce the marriage with the Su family and cooperate with our overseas capital. What do you think of the Su family? You really like to flatter yourself. Chapter 27, Shameless. Everyone present was shocked when these words were spoken, except Yifan, who remained calm. This Zhao Simon really gave her a surprise. What nonsense are you talking about? Don't think that we, the Su family, are vegetarians. Li Yanfen was also crazy. Damn, Yarn Yao, don't be so shameless. Su Zhe rolled up his sleeves and prepared to step forward. Su Ningshuang's eyes were empty, and she kept recalling this so-called Zhao. Thinking back, the only thing that came to mind was the woman who accompanied Yifan that night. Could it be that she did all this? Yifan, is what Uncle Yarn said true? You want to go public, and Miss Zhao is just adding fuel to the fire. Yifan said expressionlessly. If things had not developed in this direction, the Yarn father and son would not have come to provoke me. Yifan's view on Zhao Simon's surprise was not completely without merit. So you want to push me out? Su Ningshuang was incredulous. What do you mean? Haven't you always been the one pushing people out? Yifan was puzzled. But, Su Ningshuang hesitated, not knowing how to start for a long time. On the other hand, the Yang family's father and son are still completely at odds with the Su family's mother and son. In Yifan's view, this is just a dog-eat-dog fight and has no meaning at all. Mr. Yi, are you satisfied with this result? Wu Tong said with a flattering face. Well, it's okay. Yifan remained indifferent. Although this was not his original intention, he could not help but let the Yarn father and son get worse. It's just a small overseas capital. If it's gone, it's gone. Mr. Yi, do you need me to acquire overseas capital and then reshuffle it? I believe you will like this gift. Wu Tong continued. Yifan was not interested in this. Give it to President Lin. I believe he will like it. In this way, without the involvement of Yarn, the profits for overseas capital will increase. After acquiring it at a low price, it was used as a medical industrial park, which is pretty good. It just so happens that the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce wants to enter Shishan's medical industry, which is icing on the cake. Okay, Mr. Yi, I will ask my men to do it now. Wu Tong smiled happily. She was confident that her actions would definitely leave a very good impression on the general manager. When I return to headquarters in the future, I will have someone to take care of me. It's a mess here, why don't you go to the next room, Mr. Yi? Several executives of the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce are here too. I believe they would like to meet you, too. Wu Tong said in a flattering manner. Looking at the scene in front of him, Yifan just found it funny. Okay, let's go and take a look. Yifan said, then he stood up and left. Only the Yarn father and son and the Su mother and son were left to fight each other. Looking at Yifan's departing back, Su Ningshuang's heart suddenly felt empty. She knew very well that Yifan was different now. It was me who broke off the engagement, why am I so heartbroken? Su Ningshuang thought to herself. Yifan sat in the private room next door for a short while before leaving with an excuse. He didn't like the flattering scene very much. After returning to the villa halfway up the mountain to rest for a night, I received a call from Zhao Simon early in the morning. Mr. Yi, you didn't tell me you moved. Luckily I asked around and found it. Zhao Simon said with a smile. What do you mean? You are in the villa halfway up the mountain. Yifan was a little confused. This hillside villa is the most luxurious villa area in Jinghai. Security measures are strict and the owner's information is kept strictly confidential. To be honest with you, I also have a set of skills here. Zhao Simon smiled evilly. Yifan sighed helplessly. It turned out that this villa halfway up the mountain was only strict with outsiders. If they are our own people, then it doesn't matter. Open the door quickly, I brought you breakfast. Zhao Simon said and rang the doorbell. Yifan had no choice but to go downstairs, without even a word of greeting. Zhao Simon was carrying a large pile of breakfast, her face full of seriousness. When a neighbor comes to visit, I say hello. I don't know what you like to eat, so I just buy whatever I see. Hearing this, Yifan realized that this luxury breakfast had quite a lot of variety. Since it has been delivered to his door, he might as well obey it respectfully. Halfway through the meal, Zhao Simon finally revealed her true purpose. Mr. Yi, do you have time to give Xiao acupuncture today? Yifan was stunned. Did that girl ask you to come, or did you want to come on your own? Even if Zhao Simon didn't say it, Yifan would remember it. Since it is a treatment, it naturally has a beginning and an end, and it is impossible to give up halfway. Alas, it was Xiao who asked me to come. She was embarrassed. Zhao Simon felt helpless. Really? Let her call me and beg me in person, otherwise I won't go. Yifan said indifferently. Are you serious, Yifan? You don't know Xiao's character. If this is the case, she would rather die than surrender. Zhao Simon was also very troubled by her sister, who clearly wanted Yifan to come over and treat her illness. But she kept saying, hey, why doesn't that person come and treat me? Yifan raised the corner of his mouth and said, it's just a joke. Let's go. After almost finishing breakfast, the two of them took a car to the Zhao family's old house. A Rolls-Royce speeding on the elevated road is a beautiful sight. By the way, Mr. Yi, I heard that you joined the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce. Zhao Simon suddenly asked. Yeah. Yifan was also confused. Then I will call you Mr. Yi from now on. After all, our Zhao family cannot compare with the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce. You started as the general manager when you joined the company, second only to the president. President Lin is really willing to give you that. Zhao Simon was full of jealousy. What do you mean? You also want to join the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce? What about the Zhao group? Yifan said playfully. Zhao Simon turned her head and rolled her eyes quietly. Mr. Yi, you are joking. It's Xiao. She will graduate soon, and there is no way for her to exercise in the Zhao family. After all, everyone knows that she is the second young lady. Yifan became interested when he heard the helplessness in Zhao Simon's voice. Although he was just a figurehead in the Wanmin Chamber of Commerce, he did have real power. Just let her come over when the time comes. I promise to let her start from the grassroots level. Yifan sneered. Really? Thank you, Mr. Yi. Zhao Simon raised the corners of her mouth. A pair of long legs were raised, showing through their half-slit cheongsam. Their whole person is full of charm just by sitting there. Just remember to keep an eye on the medicinal herbs for me. Yifan reminded. They soon arrived at the Zhao family's ancestral home and the two got off the car together. In the main hall, Mr. Zhao said with a smile while holding a newspaper. How come this overseas capital is on the verge of bankruptcy overnight? Hearing this, Yifan also stepped forward to take a look. Wutong's speed is pretty good. When Mr. Zhao heard this, he looked suspicious. Xiao Yi, what do you mean by this? Could it be that you did this? Not really. After all, I just said, it doesn't matter. Yifan shrugged. Suddenly, Mr. Zhao and Zhao Simon widened their eyes. Overnight, a listed company worth tens of billions of dollars went bankrupt, and they just said, it doesn't matter. What's the point?